Seeing yourself in the mirror. The person who is really after you is not your boss, other people, or bad luck. You, your fears, your reasons, and your bad habits are what hold you back. Today isn't about beating everyone else. It's about beating yourself. Do your best today because you are up against yourself. This word doesn't just give you ideas, it tells you what to do. What matters most in life is not what you plan to do tomorrow or what you feel bad about what you did yesterday. What matters most is what you do right now. Today, I'm going to tell you the secret lessons that the great Stoic thinkers taught that will help you break through your weaknesses and become stronger. Consider all the times you've let fear get the best of you and ruined your own plans, wavered, or quit before you even began. Now, ask yourself, are you going to keep doing this over and over, or are you finally going to do something? Even though tomorrow is a new day, things will only be different if you change something today. These lessons will set you free from the chains of doubt and fear, teach you how to control your feelings, and give you peace of mind. The best part is that you can start using them right away. Time is running out, and each second you can do your best. Are you all set? Now let's begin the first lesson. That is, seek your excellence, which is a call to be great. There's a voice inside you that you skip over sometimes. It shows up when there is silence, when routine loses its appeal, or when the weariness of routine is too much to bear. There is more to this voice than just a thought. It is the call of your soul. That message says, you were born for something bigger and you can do a lot more. Aiming for greatness is not just a goal, it's a promise to live your life to the fullest. It's not about showing something to someone, it's about being grateful for the gift of being alive, breathing, and living. For a moment, think about how many secret skills you have. How many dreams have been put off until later that never comes? How often have you taken less than what you know you deserve? To be excellent, you don't have to climb to an impossible peak. You just have to be true to yourself and strong enough to become what you can be. What you've done, where you've come from, or what you've lost along the way doesn't matter where you are now. The next step you take is what makes you the best. It's not easy, though. When you look for your best self, you have to face yourself. You have to face the parts of yourself that you don't want to see, the things you put off, the things you're afraid of, and the reasons you give yourself. It's hard to hear the truth, but it sets you free. There won't be anyone to save you. When you stop waiting for the perfect situation, someone's praise, or the inspiration that never comes, you've found rescue. You choose to act, even though you have questions, and it makes you feel bad. To be excellent, you have to break through all the things that hold you back. It's the little things that bother you, like the hours you spend on social media, the habits that make you tired, and the people you keep around because you're afraid of being alone. You have to be brave enough to walk a new road, even if it seems unclear, and give up what you know but no longer serves you. However, here's the secret. Greatness is not some faraway place. It's in the little decisions you make every day. You have to get out of bed, even when you want to give up. Be kind, even when people are mean to you. Study a little more when no one is looking, and take care of your health, mind, and faith, even when no one is looking. And the best part? Every little thing you do changes you in the long run, no matter how small it seems. You start to have a different view of yourself. Your worth doesn't depend on what other people think anymore. Your confidence comes from the person you're becoming, which is freeing in and of itself. Think about where you'll be in a year if you decide to go after greatness now. Where are you going? Today, Make a promise to yourself, not to be perfect, but to get better, not to please everyone, but to live in a way that is true to your beliefs and your truth. Second lesson, look after your health. Everything starts with your health. It supports your dreams, your relationships, and even your ability to live a full life. And yet, how many times have you been too busy to take care of your mind and body? What number of times have you ignored what your body was telling you? Taking care of your health isn't just the right thing to do. It's an absolute must. It means realizing that you are the only one who can protect the building that houses your soul every day. Without health, even the biggest goals lose their meaning and become hard to reach. Just think about it. What good are big goals if you don't have the drive to make them come true? What's the point of getting a lot of accomplishments if your mind and body are worn out? It costs too much to not care for yourself, and we often only understand this when we're already stretched too thin. It takes daily work to take care of your health. You have to ask yourself every morning, how can I treat my body and mind with the respect they deserve today? Don't think this is hard or impossible. Remember that change starts with small steps. Your body is begging you to move. It doesn't have to be hard or extreme. A short walk outside, some stretching or pulling weights at home can do wonders. Your body was made to move, and every little move you make is a sign that you are living. What you eat is. There are no hard rules or limited diets involved. Instead, it's about making decisions. You are telling your body, I care about you, when you choose foods that will feed it instead of just cravings. Rest is not a nice to have, it's a must. One of the best things you can do for your health is get enough sleep. The body heals itself, the mind gets organized, and the feelings calm down while we sleep. Treat your rest time as a promise that you can't break. Take care of your mind too. It's not just your body that's healthy, it's also your mind and heart. Take some time to be still, breathe deeply, and think. Take care of your thoughts. Tell yourself nice things, and spend time with people who make you feel good. What's the most important thing? It's not enough to just live longer. Taking care of your health also means living better. It's about having the strength to be with the people you care about, the courage to follow your dreams, and the equilibrium to deal with the problems that life throws at you. It has to do with appreciating the gift of life and getting the most of it. If you still haven't taken care of yourself, ask yourself, what's stopping me? What's more important than my health? Don't forget that every choice you make today is an investment in the future. You have to choose to take care of yourself first. It's time for you to say, I choose to put myself first. Making the decision to be healthy, present, and strong is the best gift you can give yourself and the people you care about. Because in the end, taking care of your health is the best proof of value you can give yourself. You don't deserve anything less. If you're still here with me, show your support. Give it a like and follow the video. Let's keep going. Lesson 3. Know what you can't do. How many times have you thought, this is the best I can do? How many times have you thought that one was too big, that the work wouldn't be worth it, or that you just weren't cut out for it? Your limits, whether they are inside or outside of you, often seem to speak louder than your dreams. They try to weaken you and make you believe that there's no point in trying. But I want to tell you something important today. This story can be changed. Limits are not walls that can't be broken down. They are just reflections. They show your fears, abuse, and questions about your own worth that you haven't faced yet. Most of all, facing them is a chance to learn more about yourself. It's about finding out what's stopping you and what you can become when you get past those things. Think about it. Every problem you have hides a chance for you to do something great. Having trouble speaking in public can help you gain unwavering confidence, and being afraid to start something new can be the spark that changes your whole life. Limitations are there to push you, not to define you. Of course, it's not easy to deal with limits. No one wakes up one day and suddenly gets over years of fear, nervousness, or training. The power is in the process, though. When you decide to do it, even though you're scared, something inside you starts to shift. It's not about getting rid of the limitation for good. It's about making it less strong with each choice, effort, and small win. The limits we put on ourselves. Some limits are real, like money issues, health issues, or things happening in the outside world. But many of the problems aren't outside. They're inside us. Sometimes we hear things like, "You'll never be good enough," "This isn't for people like us," or "Don't take risks because you'll fail." These lines stick with us, and whenever we think about taking a risk, they become voices inside our heads that keep saying the same things. What hurts the most, though? A lot of the time, we listen to these voices, accept that our boundaries are fixed, and start living as less of who we really are. But I have a question for you. Are you ready to live locked up in a cell with the key in your hands? I hope not. Then get rid of those restrictions. Having to deal with limits often means going into new ground, and no one likes the unknown. There's less stress if you stay put, even if that means stopping, but you can only grow if you let pain be a part of the process. Think of a dark hallway. Facing your limits is like going down that hallway. There's less black with each step, and the light at the end starts to shine through. It takes guts to take the first step, but once you do, you see that the wall wasn't as strong as you thought. Not wanting to fail. Remember that failing is not the opposite of succeeding. It's a normal part of the process. We learn the most from mistakes because they teach us how to do better next time. Fear of harm. Think about all the things you've done to get here. You've gotten through things that seemed impossible at first. Why should things be different now? Being critical and judging. People will always have their own thoughts, but they don't live your life or carry your dreams. If you give up, they won't have to deal with the results. You are in charge of the trip. Amazing things start to happen when you face your limits. You start to understand that you are stronger than you thought. Every step makes you stronger, boosts your confidence, and makes things that seemed impossible before doable. But more than that, you find a stronger, more motivated and braver version of yourself. It's okay to feel tired and have questions sometimes. Just remember that every little step you take forward is brave. It's not that you don't feel scared. It's that you choose to move forward anyway. Don't see the things that are stopping you as problems today. Instead, see them as chances to grow. What is stopping me? Ask yourself. How do I start to make that different? Also, remember to be kind to yourself. Big changes take time and start with small decisions that are made over and over again. Something that seems like a big problem today could be the key to your success tomorrow. You were not made to be stuck in fear or doubt. You were made to learn, grow, and become bigger. In a deep way, facing your flaws is an act of self-love. It tells yourself, I deserve more. I am more. Stay strong. The life you want is just beyond the hurdles you can remove, and you're the only one who can accompany you on this trip. The fourth lesson is to get smarter. Getting smarter is a transformational act that can change your life and open up new ideas in your mind. There is no such thing as being naturally smart or not being smart. Intelligence is a skill that can be grown and gets better over time, as long as you choose to do so. That being said, what does it really mean to get smarter? There's more to it than just gathering knowledge and remembering numbers and facts. It means looking at things from different points of view, making connections between ideas, and using what you know to solve problems and make new ones. Every day, choices like what book to read, what documentary to watch, and how to start a worthwhile talk shape your mind and your future. All of these things give you information that can change who you are totally over time. Liken your mind to a forge. It gets old and stuck in fear and inaction if you don't feed it hard work. If you work at it and are determined, though, it will turn into a sharp blade that can handle any task. Developing the habit of being curious is one of the first things you can do to get smarter. Things are the way they are for a reason. Ask yourself how something works, and what else I don't know. Being curious helps you learn and lets you experience new things. Getting out of your safe zone is another important step. It can be awkward to learn something new at first, whether it's a language, a skill, or even an idea that goes against what you believe. But that's exactly where your brain grows. It's also important to be around people who inspire you. One of the fastest ways to grow your mind is to live with people who make you think, who show you new things, and who share what they know. Deep conversations and honest talks of ideas make you smarter and give you information you wouldn't have found on your own. Also, the act of reflecting is a very useful skill. It's not enough to just take in information. You need to understand it and figure out how to use it in your life. You should think about what you've learned, how you can get better, and the things you've learned from everyday life. One easy and effective way to organize your ideas and get you to think critically is to write in a diary. Intelligence is more than just being smart at math or thinking. It's also hard to deal with. It's just as important to work on your emotional intelligence as it is to improve your logical skills. To round out your intelligence, you need to know how to recognize and deal with your feelings and how to build good connections with other people. If you don't know how to use your information in real life, what good is having a lot of it? You should start, so what's stopping you? You might believe you don't have time, are too old, or aren't smart enough. But these are only mental blocks. Reading a page a day, watching an educational video, learning a new word. The little things you do every day really do add up to a big difference. It all matters. You are investing in your future by making yourself smarter. It's a journey that needs commitment, interest, and determination, but the benefits are huge. An open mind, a fuller life, and the courage and knowledge to face the world with ease. You can take the first step today. What habit can I pick up today that will help me learn more? Now is the time to change, and you have everything you need to move on to the next level. You have the power to grow. Lesson 5. Leave out the bad self. Getting rid of the bad self is a brave and transformative act. We all have thoughts inside our heads that often hold us back and make us feel trapped. They tell us the world is against us and that we're not good enough. We don't have this bad self from birth. It grows over time through hard times, criticism from others, and views we accept without question. The good news is that it won't last forever. It can be taken apart and replaced with a self that is stronger, happier, and more durable. To get rid of the bad self, you must first be aware of it. What does it say to you? What does it say? When things don't go as planned, or when you face a struggle, pay attention to the words that come to mind automatically. You'll never succeed, or why do you even try? They're better than you. And other similar phrases show a self that feeds on fear, comparison, and failure. You can tell them apart like when you shine a light into a dark room, and all of a sudden you see what was hidden. Once you know what it is, you should question it. Is this really my voice? Often the bad self is made up of all the negative things people say about us, like parents, teachers, co-workers, or even society as a whole, which sets impossible standards. It's important to understand that not all the feedback you've taken in is accurate. It's up to you to choose which stories to believe. Changing your mental dialogue to something more positive is one of the best ways to block out the negative self. You should think, "I'm still learning, but I'll get there," instead of "I can't do this," every time you feel like that. You're not trying to trick yourself or be unrealistic. You're just building a mindset that sees your efforts and possibilities. Putting yourself in places and with people who make you feel good is another important step. The negative self gets stronger when you're in bad situations with a lot of criticism and negativity. Find people, things to read, activities and habits that help you grow and help you see the best in yourself. This takes away room for the bad self because you start to make a world where it doesn't belong. Also, it's important to learn how to deal with flaws and errors. The negative self loves to use your mistakes against you, seeing each one as proof that you can't do something. But what if you see mistakes as ways to get better? Every mistake teaches you something, and every try shows that you are moving forward, even though the negative self would rather stay where it is. Self-compassion is another important thing to do to get past the bad self. Take care of yourself. Remember that you are a person, and everyone has times when they question themselves or have problems. Say nice things to yourself about yourself like you would a close friend. It takes time to get rid of the bad self. It's a constant process, a path of rebuilding and finding out more about yourself. But every little thing you do helps, and over time you'll notice that that critical voice starts to fade. It is replaced by a better, more confident self that is in line with the person you want to be. Today, ask yourself, what beliefs or thoughts are stopping me? The more important question is, how can I begin to change them? Because the life you want is waiting for the day you decide to let go of a self that doesn't reflect who you really are. You have the power to make things different. Making the choice to say, "I deserve more than these limits," is the first step. I deserve the best life possible. Sixth lesson, have faith in yourself. Have faith in yourself. These easy but strong words mean a lot. The key that opens all the doors in your life changes not only what you do, but also who you are. If you really believe in yourself, you don't just feel confident or inspired from time to time. It means being deeply and firmly committed to your own potential and to your ability to get through tough times, grow, and beat what seems impossible. Realizing that you are special is the first thing that will help you believe in yourself. No one else in the world has the same skills, experiences, or views on the world as you. Being one of a kind is a huge power. But we forget this a lot of the time. Society tells us to compare ourselves to others and to judge our worth by social rules and what other people expect of us. But sometimes we forget to look at ourselves. Breaking away from constant comparison is the first thing you need to do to believe in yourself. Your value doesn't depend on how other people see you. It depends on how you see yourself. You already have all the things you need. When you believe in yourself, problems in life stop being seen as impossible to solve and start being seen as chances to learn. You no longer let the fear of failing stop you. You start to see it as a normal part of the process. Whoever has never messed up or failed has never had the chance to get back up stronger. I'm telling you, you already have resolve. If you believe in yourself, it doesn't mean you're not scared or that you never question your skills. When you're feeling doubtful, you should tell yourself, I've been through hard times before and I can do it again. Each challenge is a chance to strengthen this belief and see how much better you really are. This strength doesn't just show up in big fights. It's also in small, everyday things. It shows how strong you are every time you choose to keep going, even when things don't go as planned, even when everything seems hard, even when the road seems to go on forever. All of these little acts of persistence add up to make someone who believes in themselves strong over time. It's good to remember that every great building starts with a stone, and you already have all the stones you need to make something amazing. If you really believe in yourself, you'll also be okay with your flaws and limits. This is a strength, not a problem. You have power over your own development when you know what your weaknesses are. You work on what you can change instead of fighting what you can't. Every mistake and every loss is a chance to get better. If you believe in yourself, you don't need to be great or know everything. It means you believe you can learn, grow, and move forward even when things go wrong or you're not sure what to do. Realizing that you deserve to reach your goals is another important part of believing in yourself. Many times, people give up because they don't think they deserve the success they want. This way of thinking comes from telling yourself over and over that you're not good enough. But trust me, you are. You deserve all the good things you want in your life. You deserve to be happy, successful, and loved. Realizing this is freeing because when you think you deserve the best, your actions start to match that thought. Because you know you're on the right track, you start to look for, make, and fight for your goals with more spirit. If you believe in yourself, you won't be afraid to take risks. We often block our own success by being afraid to try new things or move out of our comfort zones. There are many examples of people who did great things because they were brave enough to take the first step, even when they didn't know all the answers. Being afraid of failing doesn't affect you as much when you have faith in yourself. People take chances because they know that the knowledge they gain will be very valuable, even if the outcome is not what they had hoped for. Not trying is what really fails. Trusting your gut is another part of believing in yourself. If you're in a bad place, people may try to tell you that your path is wrong and that you should do what everyone else does. I promise you that if you feel like you're going in the right way, you should do what you feel. Trust it because it's based on what you know about yourself, what you've done, and what you believe in. Have faith that you can make smart choices, even if that means going against the flow sometimes. When things are hard and life seems to be throwing challenges at you all the time, remember that faith in yourself is what will get you through it. Problems will happen, but they don't make you who you are. It takes bravery to keep going and believe in your own strength, even when everyone else tells you to give up. Just having faith in yourself can make a big difference in your life. Now, ask yourself, what am I waiting for to believe in myself completely? Don't waste any more time. Now is the time to start believing in your strengths, your potential, and your power to change your life. When you believe in yourself completely, the world is ready to see what you can do. You already have everything you need to get what you want. Now, all you have to do is really, deeply believe that you can do it. Seventh lesson, have peace with yourself. What is really stopping you? Have you ever thought about that? It's not the chaos outside, the stress of the world, or the flaws you don't want to show. The thing that keeps you from being at peace is your ongoing battle with who you really are. You hurt yourself when you try to change who you are to please other people or fit in. Why is that the case? In your heart, you're afraid to face yourself straight on. If you're at peace with yourself, that doesn't mean you have to be happy with how you are. Looking inside yourself and saying, "This is me," doesn't mean facing your monsters, your flaws, your traumas, and your mistakes without fear. These scars don't make me who I am, but I carry them with me. This is strong because it takes guts. Stop hiding your problems and stop acting like everything is fine when you know deep down it's not. Have the courage to look at everything you're afraid to see. Stop comparing yourself to other people if you want to be at peace with yourself. Stop living other people's lives and following rules that other people set. You are not someone else's mirror, and no one can copy your life. Every bit of pain, every victory, and every mistake you make makes you special. When you break free from this unseen prison of demands and the constant need to be liked, you will find peace. When you say, "I am enough." Yes, that hurts, because it means giving up the lies you've been telling yourself for years. Forget putting on fake smiles and making excuses. Having peace with yourself is like a quiet protest against all the people who told you you weren't good enough or didn't deserve happiness. Giving up something is a way to fight against the system that makes you think you need to be perfect to be accepted. You are already good enough without any filters, changes, or masks. Don't wait any longer. Don't wait for the right time or for things to get better on their own. There won't be peace with you out of the blue. It takes time to build up, and it all starts with telling the truth. You have to look yourself in the mirror and face the truth. You do have demons, but you can tame them, get rid of them, and keep them out of your life for good. You have flaws, but they won't make you break. Without making excuses, be at peace with who you are. It will feel like a big weight is lifted off your shoulders when you do that, when you stop fighting against your own essence. If you want to feel the most important pain in your life, it's the pain of finally breaking free from the chains of self-rejection, and the pain will save you in the end. Because real peace never comes from outside sources. It starts when you decide to stop fighting with yourself, the most important person in your life. Make peace with yourself. After that, you'll really be free. Put your eyes shut and face the fight inside you. That's your real enemy. People don't put pressure on you at work. People don't judge you, and bad luck doesn't seem to be following you around. It's you. It's like you're both the fighter and the castle that needs to be taken over. You should ask yourself, who is in charge? Does it look like a determined fighter bringing the flame of change, or like a prisoner chained by fear, insecurity, and excuses? It's not the world you fight every day. It's the part of yourself that wants to keep you small, weak, and stuck in your ways. It is not easy to win this fight. It hurts and is dirty, but it has to be done. Because if you don't take charge, negative thoughts and putting things off will hold you back until you lose who you are. You are the only one who can fight this war. No one else can pick up the sword. Imagine that your mind is a castle that is being attacked. Today, every decision you make is a rock thrown against the walls of fear. Every step hits back against doubt. And the next time the mirror challenges you, may you see someone who's chosen to fight instead of a shadow of what could be. So, I have a question for you. Are you going to keep killing yourself? Do you want to keep letting life push you around? Or do you want to take charge and make today the day everything changes? Not beating the world, but beating yourself is the most brave thing you can do. Now is the time to act. The battlefield is ready, and you are the fighter. Every second, you're either getting closer to or farther away from who you want to be. You can make your choice. What you do right now, though, is what counts. That truth could change everything, not the past or the future, because those times are over. Right now. So give yourself a new start today. Stop being stuck in fear and indecision, and become someone who is ready to stand up. The Stoic lessons we've looked at are more than just words. They can help you find inner doors you didn't know existed. Are you ready to see the beginning of something amazing when you look in the mirror? Today isn't just any day. It might be the day that everything changes. Let's go deeper. Why not just leave without saying anything? No, really, give it some thought. We are so focused on ending cycles in a big, showy way that we forget that the classiest way out is sometimes the one that no one sees. Why stay somewhere you don't belong or make a difference? The main idea behind Stoicism is simple. Don't waste your time or energy on things you can't change. And be honest, how many times have you stayed in a company, a relationship, or even a job because you felt like you had to defend yourself? It's very clear that you shouldn't explain anything. Quietingly leaving is not a sign of weakness. It's a smart move. It makes it clear that your peace is more important than any useless fight. Do something now if you feel like you don't belong, if you think that way. Let me show you 10 strong reasons why leaving in silence might be the best thing you've done so far. Make sure you don't miss the last one. It will blow your mind. But first, let's listen to this story. It will help you understand the wisdom in this material better. A long time ago, there was a farmer named Samuel who worked hard to grow unique flowers in a quiet valley. People came from all over the world to see his garden because it was so full of color, smell, and life. Samuel paid close attention to and took care of every plant, and he always felt good when he saw his work make people happy. A group of people showed up at the yard one day and seemed interested, but they quickly started to attack everything. They said the grass wasn't cut all the way, the lilacs smelled too strong, and the roses weren't red enough. Samuel kept quiet while he worked because he was sure he could do better to make them happy. With time, the group started to visit him more often, always pointing out his flaws and making him do things. They would say, "We want a flower arch here. Pull these daisies up, they don't go with the tulips." Samuel did what they said because he thought that making them happy would bring peace, but every change seemed to make them complain more. Samuel noticed that something was missing one day while he was putting the yard together the way they wanted, the singing. They missed the flowers they loved, and the grass was worn down from all the foot traffic. His yard used to show how much he loved it, but now it felt like a lifeless piece of art. It hit him then that no matter how hard he tried, it would never be enough to make them happy. Samuel made a choice that night. As soon as it got light, he got his tools together, locked the yard gates, and walked away quickly. No one knew why he left, and some thought he wasn't thankful, but Samuel didn't look back. He began a small yard for himself in his new home, away from the noise and judgment. He put the flowers he liked without thinking about what other people would think, and the birds soon came back. As the air filled with scents, Samuel once again found pleasure in his work. The lesson of this story is that leaving quietly is sometimes the best thing to do. You don't have to explain your decision to those who don't value your work. The best place for a plant to grow is in peace, and the same is true for your life. Be around people who value and accept who you are. Before we start the first lesson, I want to remind you that if you find these videos helpful, Please subscribe and turn on alerts to stay up to date on the latest news. Allow us to begin. When a relationship has turned bad, there are times when life puts you on a road with lots of stop signs, but you choose to read them anyway. You feel stuck in a relationship that doesn't excite you like it used to, but you ask yourself, is this really becoming a burden? If you think something is wrong, it might be time to face it, even if it makes you feel bad. To put it another way, Sylvia Carpallo said, "When we realize that the relationship is toxic, it is better to hold on to the good memories and end it before we start to feel even worse." In other words, if you feel like things aren't going well, it's better to look back before they get worse. The first thing that might stop you is the fear of change. Even if you forget it sometimes, ending a relationship means making a lot of new choices, and of course, anything that takes you out of your comfort zone feels like a trap. Who wants to go into the unknown? Keeping a relationship going when it doesn't work out is like sitting in a broken chair because you don't want to get a new one. Because you know what to expect, you might think it's better to stay. But what you forget is that the known isn't always the best, it's just the most comfy. Trust me, your happiness is not more important than your health. What if I don't find anything better is the other big fear. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't comes into play here. Even though we all know it's just a reason not to do anything, you can have questions, but take a moment to think. Would you rather stay where it hurts you because you're afraid of what might happen, or would you be brave and go after what you deserve? There are times when we need to stop seeing the relationship as a prison sentence and start seeing it for what it is, an experience that was useful at the time but is now over. There is a world waiting for you, and the best part is that it's not based on what you already know. It's based on what's to come. Finally, there's the fear of being alone. You might think, what am I going to do with my life now? When you picture yourself without that person, just remember that what scares you is not being alone, but the thought of not belonging to a group or to an idea of yourself that you had. People often hold on to what they know, even if it's a relationship that doesn't make them happy anymore, because they feel left out when they're not in that system. The relationship you have with yourself is really the most important thing. They were very clear. Being happy doesn't rely on other people, but on how you see yourself and how you deal with the things that life throws at you. If the relationship is making you feel bad, ending it is not a loss, but a win for you. If all of this hits home for you, you probably already know that cutting your losses without any stress is often the best thing to do. After all, who wants to stay in a relationship that doesn't work right now? Sometimes the smartest thing to do is to leave without making a sound or fighting. There's no need for complicated reasons or long answers. If something makes you sad, it's better to smile and remember a good time. People who are smart say that what matters is not what you lose, but what you let yourself win. It is better to walk alone into the future than to be stuck in a past that doesn't belong to you, Epictetus said. Couples take away instead of adding. People say that one of the points of life is to be happy and content, but it seems like we forget that every time we get into a relationship that takes away from our happiness. How many times have you heard of the perfect partner? That thought sounds so good in theory, but it's so hard to reach when you're stuck in a relationship that makes you feel like a burden. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all relationships are bad, but there are some that drain you like a dead battery instead of charging you up. Does the thought of being with someone who, instead of moving you forward, holds you back, doubts everything, makes you feel unsafe, and worst of all, makes you feel like you're not worth anything, strike a chord. That's not love, friendship, or even a good bond. That is just saying no to your peace of mind and yes to needless pain. It's very clear when analyst Patricia Ramirez says, living with someone who doesn't add to you, who gets in your way, and who doesn't respect you, is living half-heartedly. We know it, but a lot of the time we hold on to our safety zone because we think that leaving it would be even worse, that we will suffer more. But what if the thing that is really making you hurt is that you aren't leaving? Here's an important lesson from Stoicism. We can't change what happens to us, but we can change how we react to it. And one of the smartest things you could do is choose to leave without a fuss, without anger, and with a clear head. Let go of things that don't bring you any more to find peace. How do you know when it's time to let go? Even though it hurts, it's not as hard as it looks. If every time you talk to that person, you feel empty, and each time you're with them, you think, why am I still here? It's time to think again about your place. The relationship shouldn't be a fight every day. No one wants to be emotionally fought with all the time, just to get home and be even more worn out. The important thing is to know when the connection is less of a joy and more of a drag. I understand that moving can be scary at times, but what's the point of staying if all you end up with is sadness and a heart that will never fully heal? It's not about leaving angry or making a big deal out of nothing in the end. When you know you deserve something better, something that really involves you, that makes you grow, and not just keeps you stuck in a cycle of heartbreak. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to just leave in silence, without giving a long reason or trying to defend your choice. If the relationship makes you unhappy more often than it makes you happy, why not end it? You shouldn't stay in your comfort zone because you don't want to go through more pain. Instead, you should learn how to get through the hard times so you can reach a place of peace and happiness. The Stoics said that we can find peace by accepting the things we can't change and changing the things we can with knowledge and courage. Marcus Aurelius said that letting go of things that don't belong to you is sometimes the best way to love yourself. We no longer feel the same way. You know it when you look in the mirror. Your feelings have changed. That person who you shared endless moments, laughs and goals with no longer makes you feel the way they used to. It's like reading a book you loved as a kid again and finding that it doesn't speak to you anymore. When we understand that love has changed, what do? Should we make something happen even though it doesn't feel right? Or should we just leave without saying anything? To cut to the chase, sometimes the best thing to do is to leave without a fuss or a long, meaningless explanation. Just because the candies are there, you eat them even though you don't want to. Giving up is much better for you. We all know that feelings change. That's okay, unless you choose to ignore it. You should not stay in a relationship that doesn't make you happy just because you're afraid of what people will say or because you don't want to hurt the other person. But it's not fair to keep something because you don't have to. It's like putting gas in a car that won't start in the hopes that it will start working by itself. There's no way it will happen, so the work is pointless and the anger is even worse. That's where the problem lies. How do I tell them? The answer is easy. Just be honest. Don't make excuses or beat around the bush. Tell them that how you feel has changed and isn't the same as it used to be. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. There are times when quiet is more powerful than words. It's most important to accept each other's feelings. Stoicism says that people should accept the things they can't change and act logically instead of emotionally. Because of this, if you no longer feel the same, it's smart to step back and let each other go your different ways. Now, why is it hard for us to do this sometimes? Because we are experts at putting off things that have to be done. We're scared to face the truth, even though we know it's the right thing to do. Some people stay in bad relationships because they want to make things better or just don't want to deal with the breakup. There is, however, a freedom in being honest and taking the step, like when you clean a house that hasn't been touched in months, and it's all done. At first, it seems like a big job, but once everything is put away, you'll feel so much better. Being honest lets you move on without having to deal with guilt or lies. You also don't drag someone else into something that won't work out. If the other person is still in love with you, they don't deserve to stay in a relationship that isn't going anywhere. You should both be clear and go your separate ways. It's not mean. It's the kindest thing you can do. True love for yourself and others isn't always about carrying on just in case or looking happy all the time. Sometimes it's about knowing when to say goodbye and giving each other the space they need to find what they're really looking for. Stoic philosophy tells us that the most important things in life are to control our feelings and act wisely. If you no longer feel the same way, it might be time to let go without holding on to bad feelings or fake hopes. Remember that going quietly is not the same as running away. It's just showing care for each other's feelings and time. The Stoic idea said that real love is shown by how much freedom we give, not how much power we show. There is no intimacy. What do you do when all of a sudden you realize that the spark you had with your partner is gone? Have you ever thought about why your relationship no longer feels like a romantic relationship full of desire and complicity? The difficult truth is that there is no longer any closeness, and if that happens, it means that something important is not working. The first sign of trouble is silence. Not the kind of quiet that makes you feel at ease, but the kind that takes over your relationship and makes you wonder if you're really sharing something or just room. There's a lot more to the idea of closeness than just those times we spend together. It includes more than just touching someone. It includes knowing looks, cooperation, and those small acts of love that don't always have to be words, but are what really connect you to another person. What's left when all of this goes away? Someone or something that used to be in a relationship is now just a shared place where habits, awkward silences, and emotional distance live on instead of love. Many things can cause us to lose closeness, but one of the main ones is that we stop seeing each other the way we did at the start. When a relationship becomes stable, standards often drop sharply. The force that used to make you look at your partner with those bright eyes, desire, starts to fade. It's simple to believe that a relaxed relationship is the foundation of love, but comfort is just a habit. And when all that's left is habit, what's missing is the real link, the spark that makes love and keeps the relationship going. Being aware that the relationship needs to change is not a bad thing. It's not always necessary to wait for magic to happen in order to make things better. Sometimes it's better to just let things go if they're not going well. One of the smartest things you can do is to leave without any drama or screaming. When there is no closeness left, the relationship turns into a fight for something that isn't there anymore and can't be made to come back. Instead of putting fuel on a fire that is already out, it is better to learn how to let go. These ancient Greeks taught us that we can only be truly free when we can let go of things that no longer serve us or add value to our lives. The question is what to do if you are stuck in a relationship where there is no longer any closeness. First, ask yourself if you're in this relationship because you care about the other person or just because you're used to being with them. If the second answer is true, you should start thinking about saying goodbye. Even though you might be scared at first, that just means that you still have something inside you that knows what's best. At the end of the day, going quietly shows respect for both yourself and the other person. Let the relationship end with honor and without adding more stress than is necessary. After all, life is too short to waste on relationships that don't serve us anymore, isn't it? This quote by Carl Jung says it better to leave in peace and quiet than to stay and fight for something that can't be had anymore. No talking to each other. If you don't talk to each other, your friendship will die without air. As much as we might not notice it, not talking, listening, or just not knowing how to do it can turn a relationship into a battleground where both people lose, even if they aren't aware of it. That being said, why does conversation fail? Even though we all share the same tongue, we don't all speak the same language. If you feel like you're always being ignored, listened to, or in a tug of war, something is wrong. Don't worry though, everything is still possible, or maybe it is. Have you ever tried to talk to someone who didn't pay attention? Lots of energy, but no reaction. It's like yelling at a brick wall when one partner feels like they aren't being heard or that they are stuck in a never-ending fight loop. They get more and more angry. When quiet is the only choice, as if words were knives ready to cut, that's the worst thing that can happen. It's true that we've all been there. What starts as a nothing's wrong turns into an explosion of bottled-up feelings that explode at the worst possible time. Then the question comes up, what should I do when words don't work? Some people believe that being alone and quiet is the best thing to do. Yes, you leave. Don't say anything and let the other person think. Then you think about your own things. But is it really the answer? In some situations, like when the judge has to decide whether to call a mistake in football, silence might be a good way to keep things from getting out of hand. Not talking when things are really bad can stop more damage from happening. It is, however, not the only option. The best thing to do is to talk to someone in an aggressive way, and if that doesn't work, to back off and enjoy the peace of mind that comes from not getting into the trap of empty words. The ancient Stoics, who were wise, didn't like empty words. For them, doing things and thinking about themselves were much more important than having a simple chat. If you think you can't talk to someone, first think about yourself. Should we really fight over every word? When you disagree with someone, the Stoics say that how you react is more important than what they say. If you need to be understood too much, you will get lost in a fight that doesn't matter. Sometimes being quiet is a sign of knowledge, and other times it's just a sign that you need to breathe and think before you talk. It's sometimes best to leave in silence, but not as an escape. Instead, it's a necessary break to avoid a bigger problem. There are times when you should be quiet, and times when you should speak. Most importantly, there are times when you should speak in the right way, because how you say something is sometimes more important than what you say. Being honest and open with each other in your relationship is like building a house on moving sand. It will fall down in the end. Think about whether quiet really is the only way out the next time you feel like it's your only choice. It could be the start of something deeper that you need to deal with. Nietzsche said, "Words are not always the answer. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is be quiet." The lack of dedication. Like being in a race with your partner, but one of you chooses to stop at the starting line while the other keeps going, sure that you will both get to the finish line in the end. And of course, when the person who is staying behind asks things like, "Where are you going?" the person who is running is already a few meters ahead, and he really doesn't know if he should wait or keep going on his own. That, my dear reader, is not a relationship. It's a rest stop for feelings that aren't being handled well. Once one person wants to take the relationship to the next level by moving in together, getting married, having kids, or even just thinking about a future together in some other way, and the other person stays where they are, the relationship starts to flow too fast. And if that person stays that way for too long, the water might stop moving the way it used to. The excitement dies down, and it turns into a load on your emotions. What's worse, not being committed can cause a gap so big that not even the best bridges can span it. Yes, my friend, you heard that right. Silence is more than just not saying anything, especially when someone says they're with you but doesn't do anything. There should be someone by your side who doesn't just stand there and watch you go while you do everything on your own. People who say things like, "It's not the right time," or "I'm busy with other things," are just putting off taking the next step, and you know it. In those situations, going in silence, which is something many people try to avoid, might be the best thing to do. It doesn't mean running away. It means making the choice to value yourself. Don't move forward for both of you if the other person isn't ready. With its focus on the practical, Stoic philosophy tells us to pay attention to what we can control and let go of what we can't. And as much as it hurts, you can't change a relationship that doesn't grow or move forward and keeps you waiting. You can keep waiting for the other person to decide, or you can do something to get your freedom and what you deserve. Anyone who comes to you is going somewhere. You are the end goal. And if no one is brave enough to follow you, it's better to keep going by yourself than to carry the weight of an unspoken promise. It's easy. Just do what your gut has been telling you from the start. At the end of the day, no one wants to be in a relationship where one person runs and the other person stays behind to wait for the first person to stop and wait for them. So choose silence when words don't make sense and walk alone if you have to. In that case, there is no winner because it is not love, but codependency. The other person's lack of commitment is a clear sign that you don't need to wait for them to decide. Stop waiting for them to change if they are not ready to take the next step. As the Stoic said, you only have power over your own choices and future, not the steps other people take. It's time to move forward, but only if it's important if promise isn't there. Silence is the refuge where you find what you truly need, as the saying goes. We should be happy. Have you ever thought about what it means to be truly happy? Of course not. I'm not talking about the happiness you feel right away when you buy something new or watch your favorite show. I mean the kind of deep happiness that comes from being at peace with yourself and not needing anything or anyone else. Now for the important question. Do you believe you deserve to be happy? If you said yes, good job. You're one step behind. If not, let me give you something to think about. You're betraying yourself when you live with someone who doesn't help you, makes you feel bad, or forces you into a pattern you don't want. It's a sneaky way of telling you, I don't deserve to be happy. Did you know that sticking in a relationship just because you don't want to be alone, or because it's what you've always done, is lying to yourself? Putting up with things that are unbearable, that drain you, that don't help you. Not at all. No matter how scary it seems, or how much fear tells you that being alone is worse, it is brave to choose to walk alone. If you know deep down that something is wrong, the best thing you can do to show respect for yourself is to take the step, toward freedom. This doesn't mean you should run away from everything that makes you feel bad. We can't change what happens to us, but we can change how we react to it. The Stoics said it. You have control over this situation. You do not have to stay in a relationship that does not make you happy or live in order to avoid being lonely. You can be happy, more full and freer if you allow yourself to be free, even if it makes you feel bad at first. Let yourself know that you deserve to be happy with all of your flaws and all of your strengths. You can feel good about yourself without anyone else's approval. This goes for any kind of relationship, personal, friendship, or even work. If it makes you feel less than, why stay in it? It's not weakness to leave without making a fuss or giving reasons. In fact, it's the smartest and most adult thing you can do. Say you're stuck in a board game and decide you don't like it anymore. You get up, put the pieces away, and look for a new game that really gets you excited. If the game isn't fun, why stay in it? You deserve to be with people who make you better, who respect you, and who help you grow. Do it for yourself. Being alone isn't a bad thing. It's a chance to learn more about yourself, start over, and do what makes you happy. You can't find happiness somewhere else. It's not in a person, a relationship, or a job. You'll be truly happy when you understand that you don't need anything or anyone to bring you down. Also, why stay in a relationship or setting that doesn't bring you peace? It can be scary to leave your comfort zone, but it's the first thing that needs to be done to change your life for the better. Nelson Mandela said, "Freedom is not having to do anything. Freedom is being able to choose what makes you truly happy." When respect for each other is lost. Have you ever thought about what happens when people behave with no respect at all? It's like how a house of cards falls apart with a puff of air. Respect is the building block of all other interactions, including trust, love, and communication. But when this base falls apart, what's left is a scary but emotional situation. The worst part is that the best choices are sometimes the ones that are kept quiet. Respect doesn't seem to be important these days, or even worse, some people think it's not needed. In some situations, not caring about the other person, emotional abuse, and treating others badly have become normal. It's true that people who have it don't always have the guts to face it. Here's where things get interesting. If someone stops respecting you, it might be best to leave them alone instead of yelling, fighting, or trying to change them. This may sound harsh, but there are times when silence speaks volumes better than words. Thought experiment. Imagine that you are stuck in a situation where everything you do is looked down upon or made fun of. It's like throwing a message in a bottle into the sea every time you try to talk to someone. What do? Are you still fighting for something that doesn't make sense? That is where the Stoic way of thinking comes in. The Stoics, those wise men who teach us to accept what we can't change and focus on what we can, would tell us very clearly, don't waste your time trying to change things you can't change. Respect needs to be given and received both ways for it to be valuable. If it isn't, the best thing to do is to take a quiet step back and leave without making any demands. You might be thinking, how do I do that without giving in to the urge to blow up? Well, you have to practice. When a chess player chooses not to move a piece, it's not because he can't, but because he knows it's not the right time. This is similar to how people use silence. Your best move is to be quiet. You do not need to yell to be heard. There are times when going away sends a much stronger message than yelling. Also, it might hurt at first, but silence gives you peace, which disagreements can't. Don't keep going over words, reasons, and excuses. At the end, you understand that the connection isn't about I or you, but about what you deserve. And people should respect you. You shouldn't be afraid to use what the great Stoic minds taught us. Finding peace means letting go of things that don't make us happy. And if there is no respect, the partnership is just an emotional battleground that doesn't lead anywhere. It's not worth living to fight all the time. If you need a break, don't hold a grudge against them. Not always about winning or losing, but about knowing when to take your money out. Remember this, friend. If you haven't already, you should not beg for respect. You should earn it. If someone doesn't give you respect, the polite thing to do is to be quiet and leave. When there is no more help, love can fade away like a breath, and the worst part is that you don't know it until it's too late. When people talk about breakups, they often say that you should yell, fight, or at least make a big deal out of it. But the truth is that sometimes the smartest and freest thing to do is to leave in silence, especially when the emotional support that was once there starts to fade like smoke in the wind. Just picture yourself as a boat in the middle of a storm. At first, your partner at the helm helps you find your way and calms the waves. But as time goes on, you notice that the helmsman isn't looking at the sky. He's looking at his phone instead, ignoring the wind that is pushing you toward the rock. As you keep trying not to crash, the ship starts to move away on its own. There is no one to help calm the storm down, so it keeps going strong. As you wait for something to change, you keep going through pain for something that is clearly about to fall apart. Then, stopping the fight and moving toward the shore might be the best thing to do. In a relationship, emotional support is like the glue that keeps the puzzle pieces together. The picture doesn't make sense without it. As things start out, you both help each other out and deal with life's issues together. If one of you starts to brush off the other's worries, downplay how they feel, or even worse, say that your problems aren't that big of a deal, what will happen? That, friend, is the first sign that there is no longer an emotional link. Someone turns into a storm when they stop being your safe place. You can go outside into the sun instead of staying in the storm. The Stoics said that we should accept things that we can't change and let go of things that no longer serve us. When something is no longer supporting you, there is no reason to hold on to it, with or without that help. Life goes on. You could make a promise to yourself to find peace on your own, instead of waiting for someone who doesn't see your pain to do it for you. Not having enough social support can hurt you as much as an unseen wound. It can hurt your mental health, your self-esteem, and how you see yourself. And being quiet is the only way to get away when you don't trust your partner. Not confronting that person is sometimes the best thing to do. Instead, leave with honor. Yes, you should fight, but not because you don't have the guts to do so. You shouldn't fight for something that is broken anymore. Don't fool yourself. Don't keep waiting for something that most likely won't happen. A lot of the time, the best cry for freedom is silence. You don't need to make a scene or look for a fight to end it. Leave in quiet, without anger, but knowing this for sure, your inner peace is more important than any love that doesn't help you. Think about leaving in silence the next time you feel like you have no longer any emotional support and are more lonely than ever in the middle of a relationship. It might be the brave thing you need to do. To say goodbye, you don't always have to use words. Sometimes saying nothing is the best way. Friends, listen to this great thought I'm about to share with you. At my old age, experience is a degree, and that's why people who wait for things to change miss the chance to change themselves. When things are always the same, Has anyone ever looked at the person they share their life with and wondered how they got there? Not the, wow, we're made for each other kind of love, feeling, but rather that tired sigh you get when you get stuck in a rut. The days start to blur together. Talks repeat the same things, and everything starts to feel like it will happen again. Do you know what it is? There is no end to the boredom in this relationship. Each day is the same as the last, and each night is the same as the next. There aren't any more shocks, thrills, or that spark that used to make you want to connect with each other. Small talk, body language, and habits that don't change. You're both just doing your job. You're not growing together. There is no room for change, excitement, or the new. There is only stillness. And that, my friend, is the right kind of soup for losing interest over time. It's funny how we hold on to things that no longer make us happy. People sometimes stay in what they know because they are afraid of the void that lies beyond. What now is what makes people afraid of change. That holds us back. We know deep down that things don't have to stay the same, though. What if you're still with that person because you're scared of what the future holds? What if you're not getting better and are happy staying in your safety zone, even if that makes you unhappy? If you want to be truly free, you have to let go of things that don't add meaning to your life. A lesson in how to free ourselves from mental slavery is to let go of things that no longer serve us. Also, not everything in life needs to be completely different, but sometimes you have to make tough choices. If the relationship has turned into a role-playing game, wouldn't it be better to step back than to keep doing the same things over and over? You are not running away from your worries when you leave in quiet. You are taking charge of your life. It means realizing that holding on to something that isn't the same as it used to be isn't always the best thing to do. Being able to let go of things that are no longer helpful is what it's all about, not giving up. One of the smartest things you can do is often to let silence speak for you. So how are you going to do this without everything snapping? First, think about what the relationship really does for you. Are you happy, or are you just stuck in a rut? If you feel like there is no more growth and that you're just living together, you might want to rethink what you need to do to move forward. And if you decide it's best to leave, do so in peace, knowing that you're giving yourself the chance to grow on your own instead of staying exactly where you are. Last but not least, it's easy to think that things will always be this way when things get boring. But know that we are not doomed to live a life of repeat. Life isn't a story with endless loops, even though it feels that way sometimes. If you decide that it's best to leave quietly at any point, don't feel bad about it. Sometimes, the first thing that shows you love yourself is taking that step. Don't be afraid to go in a different way if you see that the spark is gone and it's just usual. Friends, I know it hurts, but sometimes silence is the best way to help us understand each other when words fail. Post this in the comments if you made it this far. Not all battles are worth fighting. If you like these videos, please subscribe, turn on alerts, and leave a review so YouTube knows that you found them helpful. This makes us want to keep making material like this in the future. I think you should watch the last 2 movies we suggested. Thank you so much for your time and help. We'll see you on our next music trip. Why don't you just leave? No, really, give it some thought. We are so focused on ending cycles in a big showy way that we forget that the classiest way out is sometimes the one that no one sees. Why stay somewhere you can't add to or get added to? The main idea behind Stoicism is simple. Don't waste your time or energy on things you can't change. And be honest, how many times have you stayed in a company, a relationship, or even a job because you felt like you had to defend yourself. That's how clear I am. Don't explain yourself. Quietingly leaving is not a sign of weakness. It's a smart move that makes it clear that your peace is more important than a useless fight. Do something now if you feel like you don't belong, if you think that way. I'm going to give you 10 good, strong reasons why leaving in silence might be the best thing you know how to do right now. Make sure you don't miss the last one. It will blow your mind. But first, let's listen to this story. It will help you understand the wisdom in this material better. A long time ago, there was a farmer named Samuel who worked hard to grow unique flowers in a quiet valley. People came from all over the world to see his garden because it was so full of color, smell, and life. Samuel paid close attention to and took care of every plant, and he always felt good when he saw his work make people happy. A group of people showed up at the yard one day and seemed interested, but they quickly started to attack everything. They said the grass wasn't cut all the way, the lilacs smelled too strong, and the roses weren't red enough. Samuel kept quiet while he worked because he was sure he could do better to make them happy. With time, the group started to visit him more often, always pointing out his flaws and making him do things. They would say, "We want a flower arch here. Pull these daisies up, they don't go with the tulips." Samuel did what they said because he thought that making them happy would bring peace, but every change seemed to make them complain more. While putting the garden together the way they wanted, Samuel noticed something was missing. The birds were no longer singing, the flowers they loved were gone, and the grass was worn down from all the foot traffic. His yard used to show how much he loved it, but now it felt like a lifeless piece of art. It hit him then that no matter how hard he tried, it would never be enough to make them happy. Samuel made a choice that night. As soon as it got light, he got his tools together, locked the yard gates, and walked away quickly. No one understood why he left, and some called him selfish, but Samuel never looked back. He began a small yard for himself in his new home, away from the noise and judgment. He put the flowers he liked without thinking about what other people would think, and the birds came back soon after. As the air filled with scents, Samuel once again found pleasure in his work. In this story, the lesson is that sometimes it's best to just leave things alone. You don't have to explain your decision to those who don't value your work. The best place for a plant to grow is in peace, and the same is true for your life. Be around people who value and accept who you are. Before we start the first lesson, I want to remind you that if you find these videos helpful, please subscribe and turn on alerts to stay up to date on the latest news. Allow us to begin. When a relationship has turned bad, there are times when life puts you on a road with lots of stop signs, but you choose to read them anyway. You feel stuck in a relationship that doesn't excite you like it used to, but you ask yourself, is this really becoming a burden? If you think something is wrong, it might be time to face it, even if it makes you feel bad. To put it another way, Sylvia Carpallo said, "When we realize that the relationship is toxic, it is better to hold on to the good memories and end it before we start to feel even worse." In other words, if you feel like things aren't going well, it's better to look back before they get worse. Let's go deeper. Doesn't it hurt to be turned down? It happens when you see someone you like ignoring you, when you feel like you're not good enough for someone special, or when you try and fail. What if I told you that the loss you felt could become the thing those who left you want the most? That Stoicism and reverse psychology can help you make it so that person can't get you out of their thoughts. What if you could use easy but effective methods to get the attention and interest of the people you want? Rejection can be the start of a new story where you are the boss. Now it seems like the end. Now is the time to turn your pain into strength and make that special someone want you more than ever. Don't miss this chance to change your love life and get the yes you deserve after being told no. 1. The pain of being shunned. When someone rejects you, it's like having a deep wound that won't heal. Everyone has been through it. That one person who doesn't care about them, the rejected texts, the failed attempts to get closer, like hitting the same wall over and over again in the hopes that it will come down. But have you ever thought that maybe you're not doing enough? That the things you do are making this rejection worse? When we are turned down, our first reaction is to try even harder. We send more texts, try to get in touch, and basically beg for attention. That makes things even worse, like trying to hold water in your hands. The more you squeeze, the more it flows out. The truth is that this desperate behavior only makes the other person more sure that they were right to turn you down. There is another way to handle it, though. Stoicism is an old theory that teaches us something useful. We can only control our own behaviors, not what other people do. When someone rejects you, the natural reaction you have is to hurt them. This makes the rejection stronger. It's the same as giving people who are already hurting you more power. Accepting what is happening is the first thing that needs to be done to change things. Yes, you are being turned down. It does hurt. It is difficult. Yes. But being okay with this doesn't mean giving up. In fact, it's time to realize that the way you're doing things now isn't working and needs to be changed. It's kind of like losing a game of chess. You have to move some pieces back and then push forward even more. Being turned down can teach you more than anything else. It shows you where you're going wrong, where you're giving too much energy to people who don't deserve it, and where you're giving up who you are to please someone else. You deserve more than bits of attention. Stop, take a deep breath, and know that. You should now know that being turned down does not make you who you are. Given the current situation, this is only a short-term reaction. When you change your attitude and stop being that needy person who wants attention, interesting things start to happen. People see you in a new way. It's a big mistake to think that being persistent is a sign of love. In fact, it shows that you don't respect yourself. You send a clear message that you don't value yourself when you chase after people who turn you down or accept small amounts of attention. Why should anyone else value you if you don't value yourself? This is your chance to use your pain to become stronger and to use rejection to drive real change. We're not talking about tricks or games. We're talking about a real change in how you act and how you see yourself. In this case, reverse psychology is not being used to trick people. It is being used to break bad habits. From now on, you will learn to use your pain to push yourself to grow and become a better, more interesting, and most importantly, more useful person to yourself. When you stop chasing things and start valuing yourself, you start to change. We need to take a different path. 2. How no can help. Few people can see the powerful force that is hidden in the word no. We think it's the end of the world when someone turns us down, but it could be the start of something much bigger. How you handle the word no is what gives it power. The first thing you do when someone says no, ignores you, or rejects you is try to change their mind. However, what if you knew that no was the right answer and used it to your advantage? Think about how people act when something is too simple to get. They don't put much value on it. It's the story of the gift we get and then put away, while the expensive gift is placed in the living room. Relationships are the same way. Being open all the time, saying yes all the time, and chasing them all the time turns you into a freebie with no worth. The word no can be your most powerful tool. Do not fight it. Instead, accept it. When someone turns you down and you just let it go, without making a scene or chasing them, you send a strong message. It's okay. I don't need your approval to be happy. The person who turned you down will remember this because it wasn't how they expected you to respond. People naturally want to be with people who don't need them. It's funny, but it's true. You become more interesting when you show that you're okay with no, and that your happiness doesn't depend on what other people think. This is like putting a message in your head. I like myself, no matter what you think of me. No is also powerful because it makes you grow. Each failure gives you a chance to boost your confidence. You stop being sad and start to value yourself more. Now you know that not everything is about you. Sometimes it's about the other person and what they can't do. Getting stronger makes you feel better about yourself, like going to the gym. To use no to your benefit, you need to know that it's not the end of the world. It's just a no at that time and in that place. When you quietly accept this and move on with your life, interesting things start to happen. People start to pay attention. They know you're different from the others who are always pleading for attention. You're unique because you don't seem to care much. This power also comes from being able to say no to people who don't deserve your time and attention. Not only are you respecting yourself when someone turns you down, but they are also respecting their choice. That's okay if you don't want me around, you say. I know how valuable I am, and I will find someone who agrees with me. No is really powerful because it frees you. You feel a lot more free when you stop running away from no out of fear of being turned down. Now that you don't have to please everyone, you can be more real and true to yourself. And, strangely enough, being real is what brings the right people into your life in the end. Being smart about how you handle no doesn't mean giving up when someone says it. In a card game, it's like knowing you have good cards, but not showing them all at once. You keep your worth and honor, and you let time work in your favor. The no you get today might help you get the yes you want tomorrow. 3. Making changes to the game rules. We're not talking about cheap tricks or manipulation when we say turn the tables in relationships. We're talking about a real change in how you act and how other people see you. When you realize that you need to change your position, not the other person's, that's when you can turn the tables. If you want to turn things around, you need to stop doing what doesn't work. If texting all the time didn't help and pleading for attention made things worse, it's time to try something new. You always lose when you use the same strategy in a game. You have to try something new every so often. Instead of pursuing, you start to pull away. Instead of sending 1,000 messages, you cut back on touch. And instead of showing that you are hurting, you start to show that you are fine, happy, and going on with your life. This is not a try. It's a real shift in how things are done. If you want to turn the tables, you need to focus on yourself. Try new things, meet new people, and pick up new hobbies. People find you more interesting when you're busy with your own things. People start to wonder what has changed to make you look so good and different. Changing how you feel is a big part of turning the tables. That weak and desperate person you used to be has to make room for someone who is strong-willed and independent. You have to really become that person, not just act like that person. People can tell when you're happy with yourself. It's like a magnet that pulls things together on its own. You also need to change how you feel about being turned down. You should stop seeing it as something bad and start seeing it as a chance. You can show that you are strong and don't need anyone's support to be happy with every no you get. This plays with the minds of the people who turned you down. Another important thing is to stop comparing yourself to the person who turned you down so many times. Don't be silly. No one is perfect, and putting someone up too high gives them more power to hurt you. Stop imagining what you want things to be and start seeing them as they really are. What you do, not what you say, is the key to changing things around. What you do is much more important than what you say. People will notice and, more importantly, be drawn to a change in your behavior when you stop following and start living your life. Being patient is also part of turning the tables. It takes time for real change to happen. Don't think that the person who turned you down will come after you the next day. It's important to stay strong, keep your mind on yourself, and let time work in your favor. Hurrying things along is bad for real change. What makes a game changer truly powerful is how it changes you on the inside. Nothing magical happens when you change your mind and stop putting yourself down to get attention. You start to respect yourself more. And when you respect yourself, other people will naturally respect you too. Not with tricks, but with real change. That's how the tables turn. 4. Worked out distance. When used correctly, distance can be your best friend. It's not about going away totally. It's about making the other person miss you by leaving a healthy room. You become too obvious when you're always there and ready to help. When you calculate distance, that changes completely. Think about how exciting it is to finally eat something you've been wanting for days. The wait makes you want it even more. Relationships are the same way. Putting up a deliberate wall of separation makes people curious. Someone starts to wonder where you are, what you're doing, and why you're not there as much as you used to be. Calculated space doesn't mean you don't know anything. It means varying how much you're present. You don't answer texts right away. You wait a little longer. You can't always make it to meetings because you have other things to do. Making up stories isn't the point. The point is to do things that are important to you. This approach works because it changes the way the other person thinks and feels. When you're always there, you become like that old piece of furniture in the living room that no one looks at. But if you make room, the other person will start to notice when you're not there. When we take a picture off the wall, the empty area stands out more than the picture itself. Once you know how far you need to go, the most important thing is to use that time to make your life better. Begin that class you've always meant to take, learn a new sport, or meet new people. Putting more effort into yourself makes you more interesting, and people around you notice this. It's possible to keep your space without coming off as rude or hurt. When you touch someone, be polite, but don't go too far. Be nice, but don't seem too open. Don't make a big deal out of showing that you are healthy, happy, and busy. You have to find the right beat, like when you dance. You can also see things better when you are farther away. It is tough to see the big picture when you are too close to it. When you are far away from someone, you start to see things about them and yourself that you hadn't seen before. Another good thing about measured space is that it keeps your emotions safe. It hurts a lot to be turned down when you're always chasing, but you can handle things better when you keep a good space. It's like having a shell around you that keeps you safe without cutting you off from everyone else. One important tip is to let your space speak for itself. Don't make a big deal out of going. Just do it. What you do is more important than what you say. By making this place for silence, You send a much stronger message than words could ever say. The great thing about measured distance is that it lets you take charge of your life again. When someone can always reach you, they have all the power. You level things out when you make that space, though. It's like a game of forces where you can finally play the way you want and when you want. 5. How to attract people. A lot of people have the wrong idea about how the law of attraction works in relationships. It's not about thinking positively or picturing a better future. It's about how you really feel and act. When you change how you feel, new people and events come into your life on their own. Knowing that people are pulled to those who are good to themselves is the first secret of attractiveness. Your energy changes totally when you stop trying to get approval from other people and start valuing yourself. People can tell this even if you don't say anything. It's important to remember that attractiveness happens on its own when you stop trying to make it happen. You can't catch a scared kitten no matter how hard you try. It will run away. The kitten comes to you when you're calm and doing your own thing. People are the same way. The law of desire can help you feel better about your own self-worth. You automatically look better when you take care of yourself, do things you enjoy, and treat yourself well. Changing your mood is more important than changing how you look. People who are happy and content naturally get more attention. How you handle being turned down is another important factor. When someone turns you down and you don't change your mind, you keep living your normal life, and people are curious about you. People expect drama, crying, and being picked on. If you do something different, you break the routine and become more interesting. Meeting new people, having new adventures, and learning new things are all ways to use the law of attraction. Everything about you makes you more interesting, and when you're interesting, more people want to be around you. There's also the allure of mystery. People naturally want to know more about you when you don't tell them everything about your life. It's not about lying. It's about keeping things a little secret. A lot of people are interested in things they don't fully understand. It's also possible for the law of attraction to work both ways. People are more likely to treat you well if you are honest and treat them well. It's a good circle that keeps going on its own. People will value you more if you respect yourself. Patience is the last key to the law of attraction. It takes time for real change to happen. Keep your attention on yourself, your growth, and how you're changing. If you're on the right road and living your life in a good and honest way, the right people will find you on their own. 6. Changing how you act. It's not about pretending to be someone else to change how you act in relationships. It's about changing habits that don't work anymore. If you always do the same thing and nothing changes, it's time to make a real change. Small steps lead to big changes. Instead of answering right away, give it a moment. Don't change your plans to accommodate someone else. Stick to your goals. Don't bother people on social media. Instead, pay attention to your own posts and your life. It matters what little change you make. One important thing to remember is that how you act changes how other people treat you. You will get small amounts of attention if you always take them. People will simply treat you differently when you start to value yourself more. The way you respond to things is also part of the change in behavior. You used to get upset about everything, but now you grow up and learn how to handle tough situations better. You used to chase other people around all the time, but now you know how to wait for the right time. Changing how you talk to people is another important thing to do. Don't send any more long, sad texts. Get better at being clear and honest. Show it through deeds, not words. People respect those who talk less and do more. You also need to change how you feel about being turned down. Instead of taking it personally, understand that sometimes it's not about you. Each person has their own goals and limits. Take it in an adult way. One important thing is to change how you handle your own stress. Instead of letting your anger out on other people, learn how to deal with it in a healthy way. Get some exercise, relax, or do things that make you feel calm. Changing how you act also means making new friends. Spend more time outside, meet new people, and do things that interest you. People who are in more than one group will count on you less as you make new friends. Be consistent if you want to see changes that last. It doesn't help to change for a few days and then go back to your old ways. Keep the changes going until they seem normal. It needs to be trained all the time, like building a new muscle. 7. Young strength. Any real change in relationships starts with being strong inside. It's not about being tough or hiding your feelings. It's about building a strong emotional base that lets you think things through before acting on them. When you're about to take a small amount of attention, that voice inside your head says, "You deserve more." Stoicism tells us that the only way to be truly strong is to control ourselves, not other people. Your inner strength decides whether you will break down when someone rejects you or use it as a reason to grow. It's what keeps you strong, even when it hurts inside. When you build up your inner strength, you can say no when you need to. Even with people you love, it helps you set good limits. It's what makes you turn down attentional crumbs when you know you earn a feast. It's not about being proud. It's about loving yourself. Making small choices every day is the first step to building inner power. You shouldn't send that message whenever you want. You should stick to your plans, even if the person you like calls you. You should put your peace of mind ahead of drama and emotional games. When everyone else is telling you what to do, your inner strength is what keeps you going. It's knowing deep down that you're on the right track, even when no one else does. It means having faith in yourself when everyone else doesn't. When that special someone posts a picture with someone else, you don't get upset. You just take a deep breath and carry on with your life. When you get a cold message, you don't need to beg for attention. Instead, you keep your cool. Your ability to be patient is linked to this strength. You don't want results right away because you know that real change takes time. Just like when you build a house, you need a strong base before you can put down the floors. When you build up your inner strength, you can handle failure in a different way. You don't think, "I'm not enough." You think, "This person is not ready for someone like me." This small change in how you see things makes a huge difference in your self-esteem. One more good thing about inner power is that it can help you in future relationships. People who respect your strength will naturally be drawn to you if you are strong on the inside. When people stop depending on each other emotionally, they start building relationships based on mutual respect. Being strong inside also helps you forgive yourself, not other people. Forgive the people who hurt you, the mistakes you've made, and the things that didn't go as planned. This forgiveness lets you move on without having to carry a heavy feeling. Remember that having inner strength doesn't mean you never give up. It means you know how to handle times when you feel weak without losing your courage. It's okay to miss things, have bad days, and want to go back. The only difference is that your inner power keeps you from making choices you will later regret. Finally, you can be weak in a healthy way because you are strong inside. It's not about putting up walls, but about knowing when and who to let down your guard. It means being open to new things without worrying about getting hurt, because you know you'll be able to handle anything that comes your way. 8. Full detachment. One of the most useful skills you can learn for relationships is total separation. It's not about not caring. It's about getting rid of the need to control people and events all the time. To understand that the more you try to hold on to someone, the easier it is for them to get away. Accepting reality as it is, not as you want it to be, is the first step to separation. It doesn't help to make a million excuses or reasons why someone isn't paying attention to you. Just accept what's true and move on. It can be hard, but it's important, like getting up from a dream. Stopping making up stories in your head is another part of detachment. When your mind keeps going over a million possible situations and figuring out what every little action or message means, this must end. You can get out of this mental jail where you live by not caring about what the other person thinks or does. You don't need anyone else to be happy. This is a key part of letting go. While relationships are important, they shouldn't make you happy. Instead, they should add to it. You stop putting your hopes for happiness on other people when you really understand this. Letting go of the past is also part of total separation. Those beautiful memories and moments can hold you back, but they can't stop you. It's the same with hurts and grudges. When you detach, you get rid of both the things that hurt you and the things that hold you back. Practicing separation gives you a lot of freedom. You stop going through pain ahead of time, worrying about the future, and being afraid of losing. You can live in the present more fully when you really let go. Each moment is what it is, without any extra weight. Being detached also helps you make better choices. You can see things more clearly when you aren't personally invested in how things turn out. Like chess, the better your moves are, the less emotional you are. That's okay if you don't always get why someone did what they did. There won't always be an end to things, an explanation, or a last talk. With detachment, you can move on even if you don't know the answers. Being cold or remote is not a part of practicing separation. In fact, when you let go, you can connect with others in a healthy way. You can love without suffocating, care without ruling, and be present without being dependent. Being truly detached also frees you from what other people think. Don't worry so much about what other people will think or who is better or winning after the breakup. Your peace of mind becomes more important than how you look on the outside. Lastly, being completely detached lets you be open to new ideas. You are usually more open to the new when you are not stuck in the past or obsessed with a certain person. When you open the windows of a closed house, fresh air starts to flow spontaneously. Gaining separation takes time and practice all the time. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel weak. Remember that every little step you take toward letting go is a win, and keep your mind on the process. 9. A new beginning. To start over, you don't have to forget the past. Instead, you have to learn how to use it to make something better. When you choose to start over, you make the choice to look ahead instead of dwelling on the past. Getting over the past is the first thing that needs to be done to start over. It's okay if you've been turned down, you're by yourself, or you've done something wrong. It's just where you begin, not where you end up. If you want to fix up your house, you have to first accept things as they are before you start making changes. When you start over, you have to let go of old habits. Now is the time to learn self-control. If you've always been the type to send a lot of texts, stop canceling plans for other people now that it's time to put your own life first. Every habit change is like a brick in the building of your new self. Changing your mindset about partnerships is another step in starting over. Think, I need to like myself so much that other people's opinions become secondary instead of, I need to please this person. This is a big shift in how you think that will affect everything you do. Setting up new habits is an important part of starting over. You should start doing that exercise you've been putting off, learn something new, and meet new people. When you work on your own growth, the process of change feels more normal. As part of starting over, you have to forgive others and yourself. Getting angry and holding on to memories will only tie you down to the past. It's not about forgetting when you forgive. It's about being free. It's like getting rid of a heavy load that you've been carrying for too long. You need to be patient with yourself as you start over. There will be days when you feel like giving up and going back to your old ways. You will also question whether you're on the right path. That's fine. It's important not to give up when things get tough. Today is a fresh chance to do things differently. As you start over, you learn to be more careful with the energy you use. You shouldn't give your time, care, or love to everyone. You learn that being by yourself is better than being with someone who doesn't care about you. Making new dreams and goals is also part of a fresh start. You may have had plans with someone else in the past. Now is the time to dream about yourself first. It's like planning a trip all over again. The new places you visit might be just as interesting as the old ones. It takes courage to start over because it means accepting that something isn't working and being strong enough to change it. When you hope that you'll find something better on the other side, it's like taking a leap in the dark. Don't forget that a fresh start doesn't have a set date. Today, right now, it could be. You don't need to wait for a certain event, the new year, or next month. There is a chance to start over and do things differently at any time. Making new memories is also part of a fresh start. Instead of dwelling on old events, you should concentrate on making new ones. Each new happy moment helps you forget the bad memories that used to hurt you. Last but not least, a new start means taking back your power. Understanding that you are the main character in your own story and not a supporting character in someone else's story is important. Now is your chance to write your story again, but this time in your own style. 10. The art of conquest. How you beat yourself before you try to beat someone else is the real art of victory. It's an internal change that shows up easily in your ties with other people. When you learn the art of winning, you realize it's not about how to seduce someone, but about being yourself and being true to yourself. Being real is the first rule of the art of victory. When you stop trying to be someone else, when you accept your flaws and celebrate your strengths, you naturally look better. When you're honest, people can tell, and that makes the bond stronger than any mask you might wear. Developing your natural charm is a very important part. Not being the most beautiful or wealthy is important. How you make other people feel when they're with you is. To really have charm, you need to be present, listen carefully, and show that you care about other people. Mystery is also a part of the art of seduction. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about not giving away too much at once. Like a good book, you learn about it bit by bit, and each part makes you want more. Keeping things a little mysterious makes people naturally interested. You can use the power of silence to take over someone. You don't have to say everything. You shouldn't answer every message right away. When used right, silence can say a lot. There are times when you let the other person miss you when you are feeling calm. Building your own sense of self-worth is another important part. When you invest in yourself by learning new things, getting more experiences, or becoming more self-aware, you become more naturally beautiful. Just like a bank account, the more you put into yourself, the more you can give. When it comes to the art of conquering, patience is a must. Getting to know someone takes time. It takes time to build relationships that last. Haste is the enemy of real victory. The value of comedy is something that is often forgotten. It's not about being funny, it's about keeping things fun. People naturally want to be around people who can laugh at themselves and not take things too seriously. In a strange way, you become more beautiful when you don't need anyone to be happy. Being around someone who has their own life, hobbies and goals makes you feel good. Being able to choose when to show weakness is also linked to real success. Not because you want to show all your flaws, but because you want to show that you are human. Being strong and open at the same time makes the link between you and someone much stronger. Consistency is very important. What you say and what you do must match up. You can't say one thing and do something else. Being consistent helps people trust you, and confidence is what makes a relationship strong. To master the art of victory, you must also know how to properly handle being turned down. You show a strength of character that is naturally beautiful when you don't take rejection personally and keep your cool when things don't go as planned. Another important thing is the power of return. Of course, you get more when you give more without expecting anything in return. Being truly giving with your time, attention, and love is what it means. It's not about doing something expecting something in return. And finally, knowing that some people will not like you is an important part of victory. You can stop trying to please everyone and focus on being the best you when you accept this. You naturally bring good people into your life. 11. How to play seduction. Through the view of Stoicism, romance is not a game of trickery. Instead, it is a game of self-mastery and natural attraction. It is the skill of getting people interested by being interesting in a real way, not by lying or tricking them. In the field of reverse psychology, the best times to seduce someone are when you're not trying to. When you work on improving yourself, you simply become more beautiful. The first rule of this game is to never look like you're in a hurry. It's like a natural defense when you're desperate. When you stay calm and sure of yourself after being turned down, you attract people who are interested in what you have to say. The way you stand, not what you say, is what really seduces someone. It's how you act when no one is looking, how you deal with problems, and how you treat the people around you. All of this says a lot more than any words could. Mystery is an important part. You don't have to lie or hide, you just have to slowly show who you are. People like the thrill of finding, but when you're an open book, that thrill goes away. Self-confidence draws people to you. People will automatically notice you when you don't need anyone to approve of you and are happy with who you are. It is like a lantern that doesn't need to be loud to be seen. Healthy uncertainty is another important part. Being unstable isn't the point. The point is to surprise people in a good way. When people can always count on you, you get boring. Fun things happen when you least expect them. In this game, the word no is very useful. Setting boundaries, being able to say no, and showing that you have your own ideals. All of this makes you more valuable to other people. As part of wooing, you need to know how to listen well. You can connect with someone much more deeply if you listen carefully, ask questions, and show that you care about what they have to say. Being able to laugh and have fun is also important for seduction. No one wants to be with someone who is always sad or angry. When it is normal and suitable, good laughter is very attractive. Controlling your emotions is very important. Learning how to show your feelings at the right time and in the right way is not the same as holding them in. Outbursts of emotion are the opposite of luring someone in. Patience is another important factor. Real seduction doesn't need to be done quickly. This is like a dance where each step has its right time. It's not good for the balance to force the beat. Last but not least, keep in mind that the real game of wooing is not losing yourself. You automatically bring the right people into your life when you are true to yourself and work to be the best version of yourself. Every player can win as long as the game is played with tact and respect. 12. Love and its emotions. To understand the psychology of love, we need to know how our feelings and actions affect the people we love. From the points of view of Stoicism and reverse psychology, we must first understand that self-love is the first step to true love. One interesting thing about our minds is that we value things more when they are hard to achieve. That's why our interest in someone often wanes when they are fully open to us. Reverse psychology is based on this exact idea. From a psychology point of view, love is not just a feeling. It's also a set of decisions and actions. We can improve how we act and what we do in relationships once we understand this. We don't have to follow our thoughts. We can choose what to do when they come up. A lot of relationships have a trend called anxious attachment. When that happens, we become obsessed. We check our texts all the time and need to be reassured all the time. The first thing that needs to be done to change this habit is to understand it. We learn in psychology that when you're stressed out, you look less beautiful. Also very important is the idea of emotional involvement. We find it harder to stay objective when we care about someone personally. Because of this, Stoicism is very useful. It teaches us how to love without getting confused. Another important point is the idea of idealization. In our thoughts, when we like someone, we tend to make them into an ideal creature. This can keep us from seeing important red flags and keep us in unhealthy situations. The idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy is interesting. When we think we're not good enough to be loved, we act in ways that turn people away, which reinforces what we already thought. The only way to break this circle is to learn more about yourself and do work on the inside. In the study of love, the rule of exchange is very interesting. We create an imbalance when we give too much without getting anything in return. This can make us angry. An equal sharing of energy and care is a sign of healthy love. It's important to understand the idea of psychological limits. People who don't set clear limits often lose themselves in relationships and forget who they are. Stoicism shows us how to love others while still being ourselves. It's also important to know how the way we attach to others as kids affects the bonds we have now. We often act out behaviors that we saw or heard in our own families, even if they are bad. Emotional time is another idea that is talked about in the psychology of love. No two people are ever in the same part of their lives or emotionally open at the same time. This helps us deal with rejection and bad matches better when we understand and accept it. In the nature of love, the word no has the power to change things. We build respect in our relationships when we learn to say no. This makes it easier for real relationships to form. In partnerships, reverse psychology works because it changes how we feel about our own worth. People are usually more interested in someone who is always available when they start to value themselves more. It's not about tricking people, it's about taking care of your own feelings. Finally, the psychology of love teaches us that relationships that are good are based on respect for each other, open communication, and shared ideals. It's not about games or schemes. It's about making real bonds with others while staying true to ourselves. From a psychological point of view, true love is what lets us be ourselves while also pushing us to grow. It's a mix of accepting yourself and pushing you to grow as a person. The path of love and the path of self-knowledge go hand in hand. We can connect with others better when we know more about ourselves. We learn in psychology that the love we have for ourselves is the most important love. 13. The final win. The best way to win in a relationship is not to beat the other person, but to become a better, more whole person. When you finally understand that the only thing that really matters is changing yourself, not making someone else like you. Emotional freedom is the first part of final win. There comes a time when the person who turned you down can't control how you feel. Not that you don't feel anything, but those feelings don't decide what you do or how you act. When you finally win, you understand that being turned down was actually a gift. The shock made you think about yourself and work on yourself, which helped you find power you didn't know you had, like a bird rising from the ashes, smarter and stronger. Victory also shows up in the way you see relationships. They are no longer about chasing, beating, or showing yourself. It's about making real relationships based on ideals and respect for each other. When you stop checking that person's social media, when seeing a picture of them doesn't make your heart skip a beat, and when you can truly wish them happiness with or without you, that's when you've won. Victory also depends on how you deal with new options. You're not scared to talk to people anymore, but you're also not in a hurry. You understand how valuable you are and are ready for someone else to agree. No longer is it about how many relationships you have, but how good they are. The peace of mind you gain is another important part of the end win. That constant worry, that need to be in charge, that feeling of not being safe, all of that goes away when you find peace with yourself. Victory also shows up in how you help other people with what you've learned. Your scars can teach others who are going through the same things you are. Your pain turns into knowledge. To win in the end, it's important to know that relationships don't have to last forever to be real. It's okay when people come into our lives to teach us something and then leave. Gaining emotional freedom is another important step towards success. You learn to enjoy being by yourself and be happy. Relationships stop being urgent needs and start being choices. You have a better radar for good relationships now that you have won the final battle. You learn to set limits from the start and can spot warning signs more quickly. You also stop taking small amounts of attention. You will learn a lot about yourself through this process. You learn about your habits, what makes you feel bad, and what you really want and need. You can make better choices in the future now that you know this. When you can look back on things without being angry, you know you've won. They are still there, but they don't hurt as much. Everything can be seen as a trip that you need to take in order to grow. When you realize that self-love is the first step to true love, you'll have won. When you put yourself first, people who value you as much as you value yourself will simply come to you. Now you know that you didn't need to win anyone over. You just needed to win yourself back. Being turned down was just the thing that set off a change that had to happen. Not only did you get over being turned down, but you also became a much better person. To start over, you don't have to forget about the past. Instead, you can use what you've learned to make something better. You choose to look ahead instead of getting stuck in what has already happened when you decide to start over. At first, this process can be scary because it makes you rethink your life, your views, and your habits. That being said, it is worth it because this road helps you reach your full potential. To make that change, you have to accept the way things are now. Someone may have turned down your feelings, you may feel alone, or you may have made mistakes that keep coming back to haunt you. Realizing that this is not the end of the story is the first step in refocusing your energy. Another important step is to break old habits. For example, if you used to send a lot of texts, stop plans just for one person, or spend a lot of time by yourself. Now is the time to change how you do these things. It can be very helpful to keep a small journal where you write down the bad habits you want to change and the good ideas you have to replace them. It's important to change the way you think about partnerships. Stop trying to get other people to like you and start liking yourself so much that their views don't affect you. People who love themselves without becoming cocky are more stable and attractive to others and themselves. This process is strengthened by setting new goals and habits. Some things that can help you feel more confident in yourself are working out, picking up old hobbies, trying meditation, or getting professional training. If you forgive someone, it doesn't mean you agree with their mistakes, but it does mean you can let go of the things that are holding you back. Part of the process is learning how to handle slip-ups and questions. There will be times when you want to go back, talk to that person, or get back to the way things were before. It is important not to be too hard on yourself and to take your time getting back on track. Seeing what will happen in the future will also help you. Imagine how you want to feel and look in a year or a few months. This will help you stay on track when things get tough. This can only be done if you're with people who accept and support this new part of your life. If the people you usually hang out with encourage bad habits or don't care about your growth, it might be time to find new friends or hobbies that are more in line with your values. Creating happy memories, visiting, trying a new sport, or going on short weekend trips can help you get rid of bad memories and replace them with new ones. Celebrating small wins is a strong way to keep people going. Every solid step should be praised. Starting over isn't a one-night stand. It's a set of choices you make every day that, when added up, make a big difference. This inner rebirth shows you a stronger love for yourself that can support deeper connections with others and a life that fits with who you are. The real art of victory is taking control of your own mind first, and then letting that show in your relationships. It's not about shallow rules. It's about being real and having self-esteem. To get to know other people better, you first need to know yourself better. Finding out what you like, what you believe in, and what drives you lets you naturally share your spirit. In a world full of looks, being real makes you stand out. People can tell you're sincere and connected when you tell them about your hopes, fears, and joys. Being present and able to send out good energy are two things that make someone charismatic. Active listening, staying nice, and taking everything in with a calm smile are all ways to show confidence through body language. Adding an air of surprise doesn't mean lying. It means not telling everyone everything about your life right away, which builds interest over time. Taking care of yourself and growing as a person, whether that means reading, traveling, or picking up new skills, will make you passionate about life and naturally interesting to others. You need to be patient. You shouldn't force results to happen right away. The other person should have time to think about whether they want to be with you or not. Taking each other's pace into account makes the bond stronger. This process is helped by having humor, being able to make important moments, being emotionally independent, and being able to match your words with your deeds. Connecting with someone more authentically happens when you show both weakness and power. The most important thing about real victory is not losing who you are, by changing some of your behaviors without changing who you are. You can keep your respect and avoid relationships that aren't good for you. A sign of maturity is being able to deal with rejection calmly and without losing respect for oneself. Giving without asking anything in return makes it easier for others to do the same, without feeling obligated to do so. Realizing that the real victory is your own growth is the last and most satisfying part of the process. The person who is drawn to your growth is the one who fits in best with your path. When you look at romance through the lens of Stoicism, it's more about self-control and natural attraction than it is about trickery. To do anything, you must first know yourself deeply. You don't have to repeat set phrases or tactics. What matters is that you show your best self based on your own mental balance. Instead of trying too hard to please everyone, the most important thing is to be someone who likes life, finds genuine hobbies, and gives off a calm vibe. Stoicism stresses how important it is to control our responses instead of burying our feelings. Developing your intellectual and social life is an important part of being interesting so that real conversation can grow. When you're not desperate anymore and are instead calm about the chance of being turned down or waiting for the other person, that's when magnetism happens. A calm mood and good body language make it clear that you care about yourself and don't need other people's opinions to feel good. A good amount of mystery makes people want to know more. Adding some variation to the routine is a healthy way to get people interested in the relationship again. Setting boundaries and knowing when to say no are signs of self-love, which is a very beautiful trait. The difference between controlling your emotions and denying them is that controlling your emotions lets you talk about your feelings in an adult way, while repressing them hurts the relationship. Finding the right mix between being strong and being open emotionally makes for a smooth dance where no one feels pushed. Patience wins in that dance because pushing things often stops them from going naturally. It's important not to lose who you are. If someone doesn't fit with who you are, the victory is pointless. So, real wooing is a game where everyone wins because everyone brings something to the table and stays true to themselves. It's not about manipulation or mental confusion. What the psychology of love looks at is how our feelings and actions affect the people we love. The way the mind works makes us value things more that are hard to get, which is why total access can sometimes make things less interesting. However, the best way to move forward is not to falsely say that you are unavailable, but to control your own need for too much outward reinforcement. From a psychological point of view, love is more than just an emotional reaction. It includes choices and actions that are thought out. This means we are not helpless subjects of our emotions. We have the power to build healthy relationships and choose how much we will give in to that emotional flow. Attachment habits that start in childhood often continue into adulthood, which can affect how we deal with being alone or how we see other people. Being aware of these patterns is the first step toward a more mindful road. Too much idealization can make us miss warning signs, and the fear of being alone often keeps us in relationships that aren't very good. We stop spending too much or giving up too soon if we see exchange as a balance of give and take. It's important to keep clear psychic limits so that you don't dissolve into the relationship or invade the other person's space. Also, emotional time is different for each person. The times when you want to make a deep connection don't always match up with the other person's stage. The way we connect changes a lot when we learn to say no. This no is a powerful tool for people who no longer want to waste their time on things that aren't worth it. When we stop asking for attention and start showing that we have high self-esteem, others are more likely to be interested in us. This is called reverse psychology. It's not about lying or acting cold. It's about remembering how valuable you are so you don't have to beg or accept treatment that takes away your respect. Respect for each other, clear communication, and a connection to shared ideals are all important for relationships to grow. Love can be a place for emotional growth instead of constant strife when people make real bonds with each other and avoid stereotypes and manipulation. In this situation, it's important to learn to understand both your own needs and the needs of the other person in order to come to an understanding that makes everyone happier. In the end, the win is not beating other people, but becoming the best person you can be. Real success comes from growing as a person, which is different from forcing someone to choose you. Every love or loss is a stepping stone that helps you grow as a person. Once upon a time, something that hurt is seen in a different light. That rejection turned out to be a gift that made you open up to new opportunities, make you stronger emotionally, and help you learn things about yourself that you didn't know before. When this state is reached, the way people see connections changes totally. No longer is approval sought or short-term victories gathered. Instead, the quality of each bond is respected. What is wanted is stated without hesitation, and healthy boundaries are set. One sign that you've reached this inner victory is when you stop checking the social networks of the person who hurt you or wishing them happiness from the bottom of your heart. When resentment goes away, a freeing humanity shows up. Inner peace is a prize that can't be beat. Drama, the need to be in charge, or the need to show something go away. Being calm becomes a part of who you are, and it creates a natural attraction that draws in deeper connections. This change isn't a secret. Sometimes you share what you've learned to help others who are going through the same thing, becoming a light that shows how pain can turn into knowledge. Now you have a better picture of who you are and a sharper radar to spot damaging trends and avoid them. You figure out which groups of people you get along with best, and you don't put up with anything that goes against your ideals or makes you feel unsafe. No longer does it matter how many texts you get. What matters is how well you connect with someone. You remember the past without anger and understand that some relationships end. But that doesn't mean they weren't good because they taught you things that made you stronger. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. The more you put it first without becoming narcissistic, the easier it is to find people who value that level of happiness. You don't need to use force to conquer anyone. The only thing that matters is that you beat yourself. Finally, it becomes clear that rejection is exactly what you need to start on the road that will make you better and happier than you were always meant to be. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. The more you put it first without becoming narcissistic, the easier it is to find people who value that level of happiness. You don't need to use force to conquer anyone. The only thing that truly matters is that you surpass your own previous limitations. At last, it becomes wonderfully clear that rejection is often precisely the catalyst you need to begin walking a path that was always meant for you, a path that can ultimately make you both better and happier than you ever imagined. When you finally stand at that threshold and gaze back at the difficult experiences behind you, you realize how essential those moments were. They nudged you, sometimes roughly, into re-evaluating how you saw yourself. Without them, it's possible you never would have recognized just how powerfully you can transform. Every hurt feeling, every pang of disappointment, every closed door, they all accumulate into something that can become your greatest advantage if you seize the chance to evolve instead of shrinking into despair. You stand there, still feeling echoes of everything you went through, but there's a new depth in you now. The tears, once so fresh, have dried into lessons that swirl in your consciousness, unveiling truths about who you are, what you want, and why you must keep moving forward. These truths become internal anchors that hold you in place when strong winds blow, and at the same time give you the momentum to embrace the unknown. You discover, if you look earnestly, that the path to a more authentic self isn't hidden behind some unattainable perfection. It's right there in the mirror, in each day's small decisions, in each moment when you decide to be gentle with yourself rather than punishing. As you start to honor your feelings and experiences, you realize that real love, both for yourself and for others, cannot germinate in an environment of desperation. In the past, you might have tried to force someone's affections, believing that winning them over was the key to validation. But forced outcomes never yield real closeness. The more you push and beg and attempt to contort yourself into what you believe will be acceptable, the further you drift from the genuine recognition you crave. True belonging arises naturally when two people meet in a space of mutual respect, curiosity and understanding, and that spaciousness can only be created when at least one of you chooses not to cling so hard to external validation. Self-respect unveils a serenity that transforms your perception. You stop seeing a no as a pronouncement of your personal failings. Instead, you recognize it can be an alignment with a different course. Rejections morph into redirections. Where once you might have assumed someone's disinterest meant you were inherently unlovable, you now see that countless reasons might underlie another person's choice. Perhaps they have unhealed wounds of their own, or maybe they're at a stage in life where they can't meet you halfway, or they simply prefer a different sort of energy. None of these possibilities invalidate your worth. The difference in your reaction, no longer sinking under the weight of perceived inadequacy, occurs because you've decided to reclaim the power you once so easily handed away. That's the genuine turning point, the moment you recognize that you are the sole gatekeeper of your heart and mind. People may come, people may go, but your internal relationship is the one you'll carry through every season, every triumph, every heartbreak. The more you nurture that connection with yourself, the richer your life becomes. Indeed, heartbreak or rejection can still wound you. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be unemotional. It teaches you to be aware of your emotions without being governed by them. So, when you do feel that ache from an unreciprocated love or a betrayal, you learn to process it with self-compassion, taking what is useful from the lesson and leaving the rest behind. As you refine your self-concept, you gradually realize that who you are is much more than who rejects you or who wants you. You notice how the storms in your mind calm down when your sense of self doesn't depend on temporary, external circumstances. No, you are not indifferent to them, you just aren't controlled by them anymore. The shift is subtle, but absolutely transformative. This subtle shift involves acknowledging your feelings, be they sadness, anger, longing, or disappointment, without letting them sabotage your forward progress or your sense of self. Emotions become signals telling you where you need to place your attention, but not ultimate dictators of your actions. This new vantage point lets you see that life has always been presenting you with two roads: to accept a limiting narrative fed by fear and desperation, or to move forward, even if anxiously, toward what resonates with your heart's real desires. In the past, you might have stayed in fruitless relationships, clung to illusions, or remained in place because you feared the dark unknown. Yet gradually you become comfortable with the idea that some endings are essential. Without endings, you can't have beginnings. There is immense beauty in letting go. You discover that trying to keep people in your life by forcibly tying them to you was never healthy. Real connection is voluntary. The more you love yourself, the easier it is to let others decide how to participate in your journey, if at all. Rather than chasing them down, you hold open a door and say silently, "If you wish, join me. If not, farewell." And that elegance in your energy, where you aren't pressuring or clinging, becomes far more attractive than any forced attempt at persuading someone to stay. Time and again, you see how your own narrative changes as soon as you drop the illusions you once believed were facts. Perhaps you told yourself that you'd be happy only if a certain someone recognized you, or that your life would be incomplete without a particular scenario unfolding exactly as you had envisioned. When you release that rigid approach, you free yourself to discover joys you never considered before. Indeed, you may learn that the happiness you so desperately tried to seize from someone else's hands was available within you the whole time, waiting to be unlocked. This doesn't mean that you no longer crave companionship, love, or recognition, but now you crave them from a place of abundance, not lack. Simultaneously, it becomes evident that you're not rejecting the world. Instead, you're letting the world be as it is, while focusing on the things you can change: your mindset, your actions, your choices, your capacity to love and create. You adapt a form of acceptance that doesn't equate to passivity. Acceptance here is an embrace of reality, a refusal to argue against what simply is. From this acceptance, you gain clarity to decide your next move. Maybe you move forward. Maybe you hold back. Maybe you shift your perspective. But whatever you do it with a calm presence and a reverence for your own worth. In your calmer moments, you might reflect on the phenomenon of how alluring it is when a person is wholeheartedly engaged with their own life. Such an individual is by no means closed off to love, but they aren't desperate for it either. They have found purpose and fulfillment in multiple areas: passions, hobbies, friendships, self-care routines, a larger sense of belonging to something beyond themselves. When you become this person, you no longer broadcast a frequency of need. Instead, your vibe is one of peaceful self-containment, and that signals to others that you are someone with a life worth sharing, if they prove worthy. In that dynamic, you are not an empty vessel waiting for someone else to fill you, but rather a shining light that others naturally want to be near. Of course, none of this means you stop feeling. Stoicism is frequently misunderstood as emotional numbness. In truth, it's about emotional mastery. You remain human, able to laugh, cry, fall in love, and feel sorrow. Yet your emotional presence no longer topples you. You've trained yourself to inhabit your feelings without self-destructing, to say, "I feel sad," without concluding, "Therefore I am worthless," or "Therefore life is meaningless." The empowerment comes from seeing your emotions as waves, allowing them to pass, and trusting in your capacity to weather them, just as sturdy ships navigate even tumultuous seas. Eventually, you reach a state where you no longer have to intellectualize all of this so much. It becomes woven into your day-to-day existence. If someone ghosts you or suddenly withdraws their affection, you might feel a twinge of pain, but you return to your own center more swiftly than you once did. The tears, if they come, feel more like a natural cleansing than a sign of utter collapse. You stand up straighter, remind yourself of your value, and move on without bitterness. This is not cynicism, but acceptance, an acknowledgement that not all connections are meant to blossom. There's surprising peace in that acceptance because it allows life to unfold. People see this equilibrium in you. They notice you're no longer on an endless quest for approval. Some will be magnetized by your confidence, suddenly trying to figure out how to secure a place in your life. Others may be intimidated because your existence challenges them to question why they remain stuck in old patterns. But either way, your presence acts as a mirror. You reflect to others the possibility of living from a place of self-respect and clarity rather than grasping or fear. In that sense, you become a teacher, whether you want to or not, simply by embodying your new normal. Now, reflecting on this path, you might recall the earliest days of heartbreak and desperation. You might remember nights spent refreshing your phone, waiting for a message that never came, or rereading old threads of conversation to see where it all went wrong. You might remember the sinking feeling of giving too much, chasing validation, or stifling your own needs to keep the peace. It can be painful to revisit those memories, but you also realize that they played a key role. Had you never been brought to your knees by despair, you might never have developed the motivation to stand again with fresh conviction. That's the paradox. The strongest empowerment grows from deep vulnerability. The times you felt powerless showed you exactly where you needed to concentrate your personal evolution. The times you let self-doubt define you taught you the urgent need to rewrite your own definitions. Every unkind word you believed about yourself had to be dissected and laid to rest so that a kinder, stronger narrative could take its place. These things don't happen overnight. For many, it requires a series of repeated lessons, repeated heartbreaks or disappointments before the clarity dawns. Yet even repeated lessons aren't failures if each time you emerge with incrementally more insight. The point is that you now see you are more than your heartbreak, more than your rejections, more than your anxieties. You are a dynamic human being whose heart, mind, and spirit can flourish when you choose to feed them properly. The illusions of, "I must prove my worth through someone else's acceptance," fade like morning mist. In the bright light of your renewed self-awareness, you embark on your days with a willingness to love deeply, but also to love wisely. It's a love that first and foremost includes yourself. This wise self-love means you're not shutting the door to connections, but you are protecting your well-being. No longer will you remain in an abusive dynamic, hoping that your unwavering devotion alone will fix it. No longer will you compromise your most cherished values just to stave off loneliness for a little while. No longer will you let yourself be manipulated by emotional predators who sense your old insecurities. Instead, you cultivate a positive kind of self-protection, one in which you understand the difference between healthy compromise and self-abandonment. You also become more empathic toward others, recognizing that their behaviors often come from their own wounded or immature places, but you no longer allow their wounds to become your chain. As each day passes in this new state of mind, you see potential connections differently. You understand that your time and energy are precious resources. If someone isn't meeting you with reciprocal respect, genuine effort, or emotional availability, you don't need to fight to change them. You bless them on their journey and move along on yours, keeping your heart open for better mutual resonance elsewhere. This gentle but firm attitude means you're not shuttered away from everyone. You are simply discerning. And in time, you see how natural it is to remain selective. You may also notice that certain people from your past begin to re-emerge with new interest once they sense your shift. Perhaps they once felt certain of your eagerness to please them, but now your vibe has changed, and suddenly They're curious, or even threatened. This is a common dynamic when you no longer revolve around someone's validation. It's important not to let this new interest fool you into stepping backward. If someone wants to be in your life in a meaningful way, it must be built on a fresh footing of mutual respect. Their reappearance might feed your ego if you're not careful, but your deeper truth now is that your self-worth doesn't require them. So, you can listen or engage if you wish, but with your eyes open and your boundaries intact. The real treasure in this journey is the liberation from the exhausting dance of trying to constantly prove yourself. Picture the emotional energy you used to waste on negative self-talk, envy, jealousy, or unrelenting heartbreak. Now you begin to channel that energy into pursuits that light you up. Maybe you dive deeper into your hobbies, explore a new career path, or deepen your connection to your community. With each step, your sense of personal identity expands, no longer pinned down by the fleeting acceptance or rejection from any one person. The freedom is almost breathtaking, but it's not always bright and clear. There are still days you'll stumble. You might find yourself unconsciously repeating an old pattern or second-guessing your worth. In those moments, awareness is your greatest ally. You notice what's happening, gently remind yourself of how far you've come, and choose to correct course. This is the ongoing practice, like a daily prayer to remain grounded in who you've chosen to become. You show yourself compassion, not condemnation, trusting that real growth is rarely linear. Sometimes you spiral, sometimes you climb in leaps. Both are part of the same unfolding process. In this unfolding process, you might also want to create quiet pockets of reflection in your life. These could be moments of meditation, journaling, nature walks, or even heartfelt conversations with a close friend. Stepping back from the noise of daily obligations and online chatter allows you to reconnect with your inner voice, the one that knows you better than anyone else does. You recognize that you are your own home, your own safe place. And the more stable that home becomes, the easier it is to offer genuine warmth to others without losing yourself in the process. Sometimes you'll glimpse your own reflection, not just in the mirror, but in the eyes of those who genuinely care about you. You see how your sense of self-love radiates outward, how you've become that calm port in a storm for others as well. Friends might approach you, asking for advice or comfort, sensing that you no longer speak from a place of crippling insecurities. Your counsel carries a calm assurance that stems from first-hand experience in navigating life's emotional labyrinths. And though you can't solve their problems for them, you can inspire them to find their own path towards self-empowerment. The deeper you delve into your newfound self-regard, the more you see that what you once labeled as rejection was just a signpost redirecting you. Maybe you parted ways with a person who was never truly aligned with your spirit. Maybe you left a job that was stifling your growth. Maybe you realized you had outgrown certain friendships that thrived on gossip or negativity. Each severed tie taught you to refine what you're willing to allow into your life. Each no from the outside world has become your personal yes to focusing on what truly fulfills and uplifts you. By leaning into these experiences, you change your vantage on future challenges. Fear of rejection fades into the background. Instead, you see potential obstacles as interesting adventures or crucial lessons. You are no longer paralyzed by the potential of being turned away, because you know that your inherent value doesn't hinge on that outcome. If something doesn't work out, it doesn't unravel your self-worth. This perspective shift gives you a kind of boldness that once seemed impossible. You apply for new opportunities, Talk to people you find intriguing. Take bigger creative or personal risks. Life broadens. When you do succeed, it's sweeter because you're doing it on your own terms. No more playing the chameleon to accommodate someone else's comfort. No more sacrificing your authenticity just to keep a superficial peace. Every success, however modest, has the ring of truth to it because you've come to it as yourself. Conversely, every disappointment becomes a stepping stone, not a pit you can't climb out of. You hold your head up, examine what went wrong or what can be learned, and continue forward. Confidence of this sort doesn't scream for attention. It manifests in your posture, your calmness, your open heart. You begin to notice your presence has a leveling effect on others. Turmoil might swirl around, but you maintain an inner equilibrium. Not that you're unfeeling, far from it, but your feelings no longer drag you into destructive spirals. This serenity can be initially unsettling for those accustomed to dramatic highs and lows, but eventually, many of them come to appreciate the steady strength you embody. It's profoundly freeing to live without a constant fear of loss. You realize that nothing is truly guaranteed. Relationships can shift, careers can pivot, life circumstances can alter. Instead of clinging, you cultivate gratitude for what you have in each passing moment. You smile more easily, laugh more readily, and find genuine enjoyment in life's simple pleasures. A beautiful sunset, a conversation full of real connection, the delight of reading a good book, the serenity of solitude. You aren't waiting for a grand external event to confirm your right to be happy. You've given yourself permission to rejoice in existence right now, imperfections and all. This attitude of gratitude further cements your sense of well-being. The more you appreciate what you do have, the less you obsess about what you lack. You might still have ambitions, but they're not fueled by a sense of deficit or desperation. Instead, they come from a place of playful curiosity or purposeful determination. You pursue goals because it feels natural to explore your potential, not because you need a certain milestone to validate who you are. Even if you don't achieve everything you set out to do, you glean lessons and experiences that enrich your journey. Other people notice this transformation. Some will cheer you on wholeheartedly. Others might feel threatened, especially if they once benefited from your low self-esteem. They may try to guilt-trip or manipulate you back into your old patterns. This is where boundaries become crucial. By calmly yet firmly declining to return to dynamics that drain you, you reinforce how serious you are about preserving your emotional health. If that costs you a few connections, so be it. You're learning that genuine relationships are those where both parties are allowed to grow without fear of sabotage. It's not just about romance or friendships. You apply this ethos to all areas of your life. You start to align your environment with your newfound outlook. Perhaps you rearrange your living space to reflect clarity and calm. You might seek out workplaces that value your dignity and well-being, or you create better structures in your current job to protect your mental equilibrium. You choose to fill your leisure time with more fulfilling hobbies or communities that resonate with your personal growth. All these changes deepen the sense that you are living in harmony with your own values. An unexpected outcome of this self-honoring approach is a calmer relationship with time itself. You don't feel as rushed to achieve certain milestones by an arbitrary age or timeline. You realize the only timeline that matters is the one that fosters your well-being and authenticity. Those old social pressures, the ones that said you must be married by this age, have a certain job by that age, begin to lose their hold on you. Instead, you check in with yourself. What do I genuinely want right now? and how can I move toward it with balanced effort and acceptance of life's unpredictabilities? When it comes to intimacy and closeness, you gain a new perspective too. You're no longer chasing after illusions of perfect unions or storybook romances. Instead, you prize genuine connections built on shared respect, patience, and mutual delight in discovery. You enter any intimate bond with your eyes open, aware that real partnership requires effort, honesty, and an acceptance of each other's humanness. Gone is the old fantasy that another person can complete you. You already feel whole, so you seek someone to complement that wholeness, not fill a void. Gradually, you find that even though life still has its storms, you don't feel as though you're drowning in them. Perhaps you're even able to observe them from a place of mindful detachment. Ah, here comes a storm of anxiety about the future. Let me see what it has to teach me. This practice isn't an absence of fear, but a willingness to engage with it from a standpoint of self-awareness. Fear becomes a messenger, not a master. You accept that sometimes you'll feel uneasy, uncertain, or even momentarily overwhelmed, but those states pass. They don't define you. This approach to fear and uncertainty spills over into your creative life as well. Maybe you've always wanted to write, paint, start a small business, or learn a musical instrument. Under the old mindset, you might have hesitated because you felt you weren't good enough or because you worried about ridicule. Now you see that self-expression is a gift to yourself, a testament of your own vibrant existence, and whether or not the world applauds is secondary. Ironically, this often leads to better creations because you're no longer stifled by a paralyzing need to impress. With each new risk you take, your self-trust deepens. You learn that you can survive a poor outcome, that you can handle critique, that you can adapt if things don't go as you hoped. This ongoing realization cements your confidence. You're more likely to speak up at work when you have ideas, more likely to share your thoughts with someone you admire, more likely to venture outside your comfort zone. You become a living testament that personal evolution is possible, not through sudden epiphanies alone, but through consistent, mindful choices. Over time, people might approach you with wide eyes, asking how you developed such resilience. They might marvel at how you don't take their insults or rejections personally, or how you seemingly remain calm in chaos. You might chuckle softly knowing the path you walked was hardly easy. It's riddled with nights of self-doubt, tears and heartbreak, but also with revelations, small victories, and a growing love that you nurtured within yourself. You're not above them. You're simply further along on the path, and you can assure them that the same clarity is available to anyone willing to commit to introspection and steady personal growth. As you extend compassion to others, remember also to extend it to your past self. Sometimes you might feel regretful about the years spent in negative cycles or toxic entanglements. Yet you see now that regret is only helpful if it teaches you compassion for your own ignorance at the time. You didn't know then what you know now, and the distance between then and now is the measure of the wisdom gained. You might write a letter to your younger self, internally or literally, thanking them for doing the best they could and promising them you'll carry their lessons forward with honor. Self-awareness also deepens your sense of interconnectedness with the wider world. You come to see that every person is on a journey, some on a path that resonates with yours, others on one that diverges. You may not understand everyone's motivations, but you can extend empathy without enabling harmful behaviors. That's a subtle yet powerful stance. Compassion without codependence. You allow people their freedom to learn, but you protect your well-being too. This fosters a sense of universal camaraderie. Instead of dividing the world into those who love you and those who don't, you see fellow travelers, each grappling with life's challenges. This breaks the illusions of isolation that used to plague you whenever you felt unwanted. This perspective helps you navigate conflict more gracefully. Whenever disagreements arise, you try to meet them with calm curiosity rather than immediate defensiveness. You ask clarifying questions, strive to listen actively, and check in with your body's signals. If the other person becomes hostile, you can choose to disengage or set a boundary without condemnation. It's not about always being serene. Anger may still arise, but you learn to channel it constructively or to let it pass when it serves no useful purpose. This level of emotional dexterity was unimaginable back when rejections or conflicts used to throw you into turmoil. It's also a relief not to be constantly performing. You don't need to maintain some elaborate facade to keep others interested. You recognize that true intimacy can only be built on authenticity. The person who appreciates your quirks, your quiet days, your fervent passions, and even your uncertainties, this is the person who deserves to be in your sphere. You no longer chase illusions of who you should be to gain acceptance. If you occasionally slip back into a performance or people-pleasing role, you catch yourself quicker, returning to your center with each new awareness. Day by day, you become an artist of your own life, painting it with the colors you find meaningful. Maybe that means dedicating more time to family, or volunteering in your community, or traveling, or focusing on creative pursuits. The unifying theme is that you choose from a place of self-alignment. You don't chase illusions for illusion's sake. You also shed the guilt of wanting or needing time for yourself. You see that self-care is not an optional luxury, but a necessary foundation if you want to keep giving your best to the world. You keep building, moment by moment, breath by breath. If you ever come to a crossroads, you consult that inner voice that has grown sharper, calmer, and wiser over time. You ask yourself, does this choice resonate with who I am becoming, or does it pander to old fears and insecurities? Then you choose accordingly. The more you do this, the stronger your internal compass becomes. You develop a near uncanny knack for sensing what's right for you, which opportunities are worthy, and which you should let go. Even in relationships that don't pan out, you notice they tend to end more peacefully, with less drama. When it's clear that you and another person are not aligned, you communicate openly, accept any emotional fallout, and transition forward. The heartbreak might still sting, but it doesn't define you, nor does it spawn endless blame or regret. You keep your self-respect intact, and hopefully you leave the other person with a respectful closure that allows them to reflect constructively on the experience. Sometimes you marvel at how interconnected all these developments are. Self-respect fosters better choices foster better outcomes reinforce self-love, and so on in a virtuous cycle. It's not that you become immune to life's difficulties. Financial hardships, health crises, or unexpected losses might still appear, but your response is more measured, anchored in the knowledge that you can face adversity without collapsing into despair. You approach problems step by step with honesty and a willingness to adapt. This resilience eventually translates into the quiet confidence that helps you stand tall in any environment. This unwavering sense of self might even allow you to revisit old relationships and see them with a kinder perspective. Perhaps you realize that certain people who hurt you were themselves hurting. You don't condone what they did, but you no longer let bitterness gnaw at you. Forgiveness becomes easier because it's not about letting them off the hook. It's about refusing to let their actions dominate your emotional landscape. In letting go, you set yourself free to embrace new chapters, unburdened by the weight of old resentments. You also see more clearly how you affect those around you. Every small act of kindness, every moment you choose compassion over judgment, resonates outward. Instead of falling into patterns of gossip or hostility, you cultivate honest dialogues. You learn to hold space for people who are going through rough times without absorbing their pain as your own. At the same time, you're wise enough to step back if the situation becomes a vortex threatening your well-being. You choose your battles, realizing that not every argument needs your engagement. At the end of each day, you might reflect on how incredible it feels not to be enslaved by the question, "Am I good enough?" You know you're enough, infinitely enough, precisely because you exist and strive for continual self-improvement and empathy. You accept that enough doesn't mean perfect. You will continue to have faults, to make mistakes, to encounter new challenges. But with each struggle, you have the tools to handle it. Mindfulness, stoicism, self-compassion, and a willingness to learn. In the quiet of the night, you lie in bed and acknowledge the day's events, both the uplifting and the disheartening. You thank yourself for showing up, for moving one step further along the path of self-fulfillment. And even on the days when you don't feel strong, you treat yourself gently. You recognize that real strength grows in the garden of self-kindness, not in the desert of harsh self-criticism. This practice, repeated over and over, becomes second nature. You catch glimpses of how different your future can be. You realize that you can design relationships that blossom because they're nurtured by two whole individuals, not by half-selves searching for completion. You can engage in work that resonates with your values, or at least approach your current job with a dignity that doesn't allow it to overshadow your sense of identity. Your nights can be filled with rewarding solitude or shared with people you respect, free from the old fear of being alone. And you think to yourself, this is only the beginning. Yes, it is only the beginning. Change is ongoing, and you remain a student of life. Some days, everything clicks. You feel unstoppable. Other days, old insecurities creep in. But the difference is that now you have a framework to handle them. You know the triggers, you know the tools, and you trust in your ability to recalibrate. In short, you trust yourself. That's an irreplaceable gift that no one can take from you. If you were to distill all of this down to one overarching truth, it might be, you have the power to define your own narrative. So often, heartbreak and rejection told you a story that you weren't lovable or that you must contort yourself to be wanted. Now, you rewrite that narrative each time you choose self-respect. You claim ownership of your life by focusing on what you can create, how you can grow, and whom you can help along the way. In doing so, you find that you can indeed be at peace, not by controlling every external detail, but by guiding your internal response. As this peace grows, you naturally feel more open to love, not less. You no longer see love as a precarious transaction, but as an offering of your truest self to another person who offers the same. If they're not ready, or if the alignment isn't there, you don't crumble. You keep your heart open for the people who will resonate and reciprocate. The more you meet life with this steady heart, the more aligned connections you attract. What once seemed like a complicated labyrinth of heartbreak now simplifies into a steady journey where each twist and turn contributes to deeper self-knowledge. You also laugh more. It might surprise you how humor creeps back into your life when stress abates. You find yourself amused by daily ironies, free to smile at your own quirks. You don't have to stage a performance of being flawless. You can be delightfully imperfect, grin at your blunders, and try again without shame. People respond warmly to authentic laughter. There's a contagious joy in being around someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously, yet respects themselves too deeply to indulge in self-mockery. At times, you might find yourself becoming an anchor for those who are still lost. They may confide their anxieties, heartbreaks, or confusion to you, drawn by your calm perspective. While you can't solve their problems, you can listen without judgment, share the lessons you gleaned, and remind them that they too have the power to shift their narrative. You won't carry them on your back, but you will cheer them on as they learn to walk their own path. This is how your growth ripples outward, affecting lives you never imagined you could touch. In the tapestry of life, you see that every thread you weave is connected. Your old heartbreaks are woven into your renewed sense of hope. Your new aspirations are rooted in the fertile ground of past disappointments. Everything has led you here, to this moment, where your soul breathes freely in the knowledge that you are enough. Each day is another chance to refine, to expand, to share, to let go, and to embrace. You cultivate this sense of wonder because it keeps you curious, and curiosity keeps you alive in the fullest sense. Sometimes, memories of those who hurt you resurface. You recall their faces, their words, the piercing moments. Yet now, instead of surging anger or anguish, you might feel a gentle sadness or even compassion. These were human beings, flawed as you are, trying to navigate life with whatever toolbox they had. They might have inflicted pain because it was all they knew, or because they were too blind to see the worth in you. Either way, their choices belong to them. You can allow the memory to pass without re-entering that vortex of confusion. You have reclaimed your power, and that power includes the ability to release old burdens. This sense of resolution doesn't make you naive. If confronted again with certain toxic patterns, you know to stand your ground or walk away. You're not seeking to be a martyr or a doormat. Rather, you've balanced empathy with self-protection. You can care deeply without sacrificing your soul, and you can be steadfast without hardening your heart. That is the equilibrium that fosters authentic relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or familial. Equally, you come to terms with the fact that life itself is an ebb and flow. Sometimes everything aligns beautifully: your career, your relationships, your sense of purpose. Other times, you might feel stuck or uncertain. But now, you understand that these cycles are natural. You don't interpret a lull as a reflection of your inadequacy, nor do you see a struggle as permanent. Instead, you develop patience and perspective, recalling how many tides you've already survived. This cyclical nature of existence becomes less threatening when you trust your ability to adapt. And so the days keep unfolding. Each sunrise is a chance to reaffirm your center, each sunset an opportunity to reflect on what you've learned. Friends come, and sometimes they go. Partners may join you for significant chapters, but if the story diverges, you part ways with as much grace as you can muster. Achievements thrill you, but you don't hinge your identity on them. Failures disappoint you, but you don't sink into despair. You are fully engaged in living, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a co-creator of your destiny. It's beautiful to witness how this balanced approach to life can also spark creativity. When you're no longer shackled by fear or the need for external affirmation, your mind opens to new ideas, new ventures, new ways of expressing love. You become a channel for possibility rather than a sponge for doubts. Even if the outer world remains chaotic or unpredictable, your inner world harbors a stable sanctuary where you can retreat, recharge, and then step back into the world with renewed energy. Looking around, you notice that while not everyone walks the same path, many people are searching for what you found, a sense of peaceful groundedness. Some of them have read all the self-help books, watched all the motivational videos, yet still struggle. You remember being in that space, hungry for answers but stuck in cycles. You empathize. You understand that the real pivot happens internally, often catalyzed by personal crises. You can't rush or force someone into that readiness, but you can offer them kindness and a living example that it is indeed possible to cross that threshold. In those moments of empathy, you silently thank your younger self for enduring the heartbreaks that eventually led you here. You begin to see that life isn't a linear journey from one conquest to the next, but a spiraling ascent, where each repetition of a theme occurs at a higher level of awareness, if you allow it. With each cycle, you become more skillful at navigating the complexities of relationships, the intricacies of self-love, and the art of balancing individual needs with genuine connection. You also see how this blossoming sense of identity weaves into your perception of success. No longer is success measured solely by accolades, wealth, or the number of social media likes. Success feels more like a sense of congruence between who you are inside and how you act outside. It's about forming relationships that respect your boundaries, pursuing endeavors that ignite your passions, and living with a sense of meaning that transcends superficial markers. This deeper notion of success might baffle those who still equate worth with external metrics, but you sense that genuine fulfillment arises from inner alignment. When the storms of life inevitably roll in, maybe you lose a loved one, face a severe disappointment, or watch a dream crumble, you handle it with a newly honed grace. You allow yourself to grieve or to feel frustration, without concluding that life is unfair or pointless. You also refrain from piling blame on yourself for existing within a reality that can be unpredictable. This acceptance is not resignation, it's an understanding of life's flux. In that acceptance, you gather the necessary strength to rebuild. Each heartbreak, while painful, becomes less devastating because you no longer interpret it as a cosmic statement on your worth. In calmer phases, you might immerse yourself in reading philosophy, listening to music that stirs your soul, or engaging in heartfelt dialogues that enrich your perspective. You realize that nurturing your inner self can be as vital as any professional or social accomplishment. It's in these thoughtful, quieter moments that you fully appreciate the growth you've experienced. You sense a stillness in your core, a steady flame that remains lit no matter what winds blow. This flame is your self-belief, a gift that keeps giving. Of course, self-belief doesn't mean arrogance. You're aware of your limitations, your blind spots, your capacity for mistakes. But you also trust in your ability to keep learning. You can apologize sincerely when you're wrong, and you can celebrate wholeheartedly when you excel. You're not stuck in a false humility that downplays your talents, nor in a narcissistic bubble that ignores your flaws. You inhabit the middle ground, where honest self-perception resides. Some might call this balance enlightenment. Others simply call it maturity. Whatever the label, you know it's an ongoing practice. Certain days you'll feel like an enlightened being. Other days you might be short-tempered or anxious. But that's all right because you hold on to the bigger picture. It's not about being in a constant state of bliss. It's about returning to your center whenever life pulls you away. That repeated return, that daily recommitment to self-love and mindful living forms the tapestry of your existence now. When you look forward, you see possibility shining. not in the sense of guaranteed outcomes, but in the sense that you are prepared to face whatever arises. You can love fiercely without losing yourself. You can create wholeheartedly without succumbing to perfectionism, and you can stand alone without feeling lonely. As you continue to refine these skills, you become an even brighter example for those around you, simply by being who you are. And so you continue, step by step, breath by breath, day by day. You observe your growth, stand witness to your own transformation, and remain open to what's yet to come. Perhaps you'll find a breathtaking partnership that resonates on every level, or you might sail solo for a long stretch, exploring the richness of solitude. Perhaps you'll shift careers multiple times, or remain in one field, but keep expanding your horizons in other ways. The specifics matter less than the spirit with which you approach them. That spirit is rooted in self-respect, mindful presence, and the unwavering belief that you are inherently worthy of living a life aligned with your deepest values. You reach a point where you no longer wonder, how can I make them want me? Instead, you ask, is this situation, this job, this relationship, this environment truly good for me? The shift is profound, placing your well-being at the forefront. You approach each scenario with a calm determination, ready to invest effort but unwilling to sabotage yourself for external illusions. And ironically, the less you chase illusions, the more authentic invitations flow your way. This is the paradox of attraction. By centering yourself, you attract better connections and opportunities. As your journey unfolds, you cultivate a broader sense of compassion. You realize that everyone is somewhere along a continuum of growth, just as you are. Some are stuck in illusions that you've shed. Some are blazing trails that you've yet to discover. This fosters humility and curiosity, reminding you that you are both a teacher and a student in the vast classroom of life. No single framework or dogma can encapsulate the totality of human experience. Instead, you remain open-minded, gleaning insights from diverse sources, from ancient wisdom to modern psychology, from personal mentors to the quiet teachings of nature. Each season transitions into the next. Leaves fall, new buds appear, storms rage, and sunlight breaks through. In every transition, you find a parallel in your own emotional life. You might identify times of harvest, times of sowing, times of waiting, times of blossoming. This cyclical dance ceases to frighten you because you recognize it as the natural rhythm of existence. In every cycle, you find new facets of yourself and refine old ones. You learn that you can celebrate your triumphs without losing your grounding, and mourn your losses without losing your hope. And so, day by day, you embody the final and ongoing victory, the realization that your worth is intrinsic, your happiness is self-generated, and your love is too abundant to be caged by the fleeting acceptance of another. Yes, you remain open to the joys of companionship, the thrill of new adventures, the sweet tenderness of real friendship, the excitement of discovering fresh aspects of yourself. But none of these experiences can ever again overshadow the central, unwavering truth that you are whole. This wholeness forms the lens through which you now see the world, clearer, kinder, more assured. You've come home to yourself, and that is a home you'll never abandon again. You recognize, finally, that each relationship has served as a mirror, reflecting facets of you that needed tending. Each experience, whether it ended in heartbreak or joy, contributed a thread to the tapestry of who you are now. You know you're still evolving. Indeed, that evolution will never cease. But you've laid down a rock-solid cornerstone, self-respect. And from that cornerstone, you build outward with genuine confidence, unstoppable curiosity, and a quietly radiant love that embraces both you and the world around you. Even if a day arrives when life's storms converge and you momentarily forget your power, the memory of your journey can reorient you. You'll catch a glimpse of the path you've traveled, filled with lessons and turning points, and recall how you once stood in uncertainty, yet found the strength to trust yourself. That memory alone can reignite your inner flame. You may stumble, but you won't remain on the ground. Each time you fall, you land on a foundation built from all your accumulated self-knowledge. And from there, standing back up becomes not just a possibility, but a near inevitability. Within this softened but sturdy heart, you also cultivate gratitude for the rejections that once tore you apart. Those harsh experiences propelled you to examine the stories you were telling yourself, to question your patterns, and to seek deeper truths. Without them, complacency might have kept you stuck in an identity built on shaky ground. This isn't to romanticize the pain you went through. It's simply to acknowledge that from pain can spring forth immense growth. You stand as living proof. And now, as you contemplate the horizon of your life, whether it's tomorrow's routine or some grand, distant future, you do so with a balanced sense of anticipation. You remain aware that your happiness, your peace, and your value are not for someone else to grant or deny. You've tapped into a wellspring of self-worth that can sustain you through ups and downs alike. Others might add to your joy, but they can't revoke it because it's rooted in your own core. That is a freedom more exhilarating than any fleeting romance could ever provide. Still, you're not jaded. You remain open-hearted, ready to explore, ready to love deeply when genuine possibilities arise. You simply do so now from an inner seat of poise, not from a vantage of desperation. Your faith in yourself runs deeper than any one outcome. That's the difference. You've stepped away from the illusions that conflated external acceptance with self-acceptance. And ironically, that step away from illusions often invites more meaningful connections because people sense the authenticity in you, an authenticity that resonates with their own desire for genuine human bonds. You carry on in this manner, weaving each new day into the tapestry of your life. You might still encounter heartbreak or disappointment, but it lands differently now, painful but not annihilating. Each episode is integrated as part of your ever-expanding story, a story anchored by the knowledge that you are enough, that you are resilient, that you can love and be loved without sacrificing your essence. Eventually, you realize you've created a quiet revolution in your life. The once frenzied quest for outside approval has been replaced with a measured, confident stride toward your personal aspirations. Whether your aspirations lead you to spiritual growth, career success, artistic pursuits, or all of the above, you approach them with the calm certainty that the journey itself is a gift. In the big picture, external achievements, while gratifying, can never outshine the sense of wholeness you've cultivated within. Such wholeness also expands your empathy. You can meet people where they are, honoring their own process without trying to force them into yours. This empathy coexists with healthy boundaries, ensuring that while you remain compassionate, you never again lose yourself in someone else's storm. This synergy of caring for others while preserving self-respect is precisely the hallmark of real maturity. Life continues in its mosaic of joy, sorrow, routine, surprise, passion, stillness, and everything in between. You respond to this mosaic from a place of integrated self-knowledge. Sometimes you'll feel unstoppable, sometimes tenderly vulnerable, But always you'll remain anchored in a deeper truth. You have a right to be here, to take up space, to explore your passions, and to seek meaningful connections. No one's dismissal can invalidate that right. If they reject you, it only illuminates a path not meant for you, or a timing that isn't aligned. Such acceptance transforms the dynamic of any rejection or setback. Instead of questioning your worth, you question whether you and the other party share a meaningful resonance. Instead of condemning yourself when things fall apart, you analyze the lessons and move on. This perspective frees you from the chains of self-flagellation that once kept you small. It's not arrogance to say you deserve respect. It's a baseline of psychological health. You're unlearning the toxic narrative that placed your entire validation outside yourself. You see, at last, that the biggest challenge was never about getting someone to want you. It was always about learning to want yourself, to want your own company, your own dreams, your own edges and curves, your own evolving worldview. Once that fundamental wanting is established, wanting others doesn't vanish. It just becomes a healthier desire, one not laced with codependency or desperation. You can share your life with someone out of choice, not out of a gnawing need to fill an internal void. This shift in perspective also magnifies your personal relationships. When two self-respecting individuals come together, they encourage each other's growth without sabotage or envy. They celebrate each other's wins and offer genuine solace in losses. They don't see the relationship as a competition or a security blanket. Rather, it becomes a supportive synergy, a place where both can flourish while maintaining their distinct identities. Should the relationship end for any reason, it is mourned but not catastrophized, because both parties entered it whole. They leave it likewise intact, if sadder, but also wiser. And as for those who never learn to see your worth, you let them go without rancor, because not everyone has the capacity or the desire to understand you. You no longer see that as a personal failing. Different destinies, different lessons, different rhythms. There's space for all of that in a large and varied world. Instead of focusing on those who don't appreciate you, you direct your attention to those who do, and more importantly, to ensuring you appreciate yourself. Every time you reaffirm your self-respect, you deepen the neural pathways that guide you toward self-loving behavior. Psychological research shows that repeated actions and affirmations rewire the brain. Over time, this rewiring stabilizes your sense of identity so that it no longer swings wildly with every external event. You discover that your calm center is accessible under any weather pattern life throws at you. Sometimes it's hidden behind storms of intense emotion, but you know it's there, so you keep navigating until you find your footing again. The beauty of this process is that it's never too late to begin. Whether you are 18 or 80, the principles of self-respect, boundaries, mindful acceptance, and authentic living are always valid. You may regret that you didn't learn them sooner, but regret itself can become a stepping stone. It reminds you not to waste a day more denying yourself the freedom to stand confidently in your own soul. This entire journey weaves back to the truth that rejection is an unlikely but effective guide. It rips off the veil of illusions, forcing you to confront the question, why am I giving someone else the power to decide my worth? That question, once allowed to settle in your mind, can usher you onto the very road that leads to greater wholeness and a more fulfilling life. It teaches you that heartbreak can be a portal to deeper self-knowledge, that solitude can be a cradle of growth, and that finding love starts with loving yourself first. At the end of it all, you rest in the knowledge that you are enough and always were. The difference now is that you know it, not as an intellectual concept, but as a lived, embodied reality. Each day that you choose self-respect, you choose clarity. Each day that you set healthy boundaries, you choose self-love. Each day that you treat rejection as a redirection instead of a condemnation, you expand your potential. Over time, these choices create a life glowing with genuine confidence, open-hearted curiosity, and resilient peace.